Today, I caught my opponent during a Magic the Gathering tournament blatantly cheating during our round together. But instead of calling him out and exposing him for cheating, instead I beat him fair and square. But now after the fact, my friends are saying that I'm an idiot for letting this slide, as they're split down the middle of whether I should have said something or not about this kid cheating. But at this point, I'm not sure if I made a mistake, and I seriously just don't know what to do. Welcome back to Am I the Jerk? Oh man, this one hits home. I played a ton of competitive card games when I was a kid, so this story rings very true to me. So please have a seat, relax, subscribe to Am I the Jerk if you haven't already, and with that, let's get started. Okay, to start things off, I was playing in a paid Magic the Gathering tournament last night, and you know what? I was doing pretty well. In fact, my first 2 rounds, I went on to win without losing a single game. When I sit down for round 3, my opponent is a kid no older than 10 years old. At the store I play in, players are always matched by their win record, meaning this kid also has not lost a single match. And to be completely honest, I was a little worried at first. I've gotten completely demolished by younger players before, and even though this was a more casual event, I knew that some of the other players were pretty experienced. We then start the game, and I noticed that he set his deck down and immediately drew his starting hand. Now, normally in Magic tournaments, you offer your deck to your opponent to cut or shuffle before starting, but I figured he was young and wasn't used to playing like that, so we start the game, and I just get completely destroyed. It seemed like he drew all of his major threats and always had the removal that he needed. So I start shuffling up for game 2, and I see that he shuffles his deck under the table while clearly staring at the cards. I've dealt with players stacking their decks before, and to be honest, I've done this once or twice too, but never in a tournament. But I also didn't want to call this kid out in front of the entire store. So after supposedly shuffling his deck, he immediately went to draw his opening hand again. But this time I asked him if I could shuffle his deck before we started. In Magic, both players are allowed in the rules to shuffle their opponent's deck before the start of the game. And while he did look a little bit hesitant, he still said yes. So I shuffled his deck, and while game 2 was still close, I ended up winning. I then noticed he was a bit upset about not drawing his perfect cards, but he never made a fuss or caused a scene at all. He did the same shuffle for game 3, even less subtle this time, and I asked to shuffle his deck again, which he let me do. And then guess what? I went on to win the 3rd game and win the match. Now, he was a good sport about it, and we both talked about how cool each other's decks were, and he even asked to play a few friendly games afterwards, which I agreed to. Well, after the fact, I brought this up to one of my friends after the tournament, and one of them said that I should have been harder on him, basically explaining that I should have brought it up to the store so that he can't cheat wins out of people in a paid tournament. But the other person said that I should have just let him win because I already prevented him from cheating, and that letting kids win is a bit of an unwritten rule at our local game store. Now, I will admit, I really wanted to win all my games, so I was going to try to win against my opponent regardless of who they were. My only hang-up is that I do feel a bit bad that I made the kid upset by catching him. So am I the jerk for winning and for making this kid feel bad? Because I don't know what to do. Okay, everybody, sit down. If you're standing up, I want you to sit down right now because I got some serious opinions about this one, dude. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a kid, if you're an adult, if you're like an elderly person. I don't care at all who you are. If you cheat in a card game, you're a piece of crap. I can say that confidently, dude. I played competitive card games when I was a kid, and oh my god, the number of people who blatantly cheat amongst a pool of like honest people like myself was astronomical, dude. Everybody was cheating. The top guys that went to nationals were cheating. Even like the local regional superheroes, they were all cheating as well. Everybody was cheating. So when the original poster says, man, I feel bad for calling this kid out for cheating or for somehow beating him and making him feel bad, I don't know what to do. That makes me want to rip my hair out of my head, bro. Are you kidding me right now? Dude, not only should you have reported him for cheating, you should have stood up on the table and publicly shamed that little brat. You should have looked at that demon spawn and said, this child's cheating. I caught them blatantly cheating. You right there. I would have made this a core memory this little idiot would never forget for the rest of his life. Like seriously, when it comes to cheating, I don't care if you're a kid or not. If you're gonna cheat, I'm gonna call you out every single time. I don't care about the consequences socially. I don't care about how you feel about it. If I paid money to go into a tournament and I'm on a winning streak and I catch you cheating, you're gonna get absolutely annihilated and I'm gonna make sure of it. There's no excuse for that. Screw that crap. And screw that kid's feelings. Like, oh man, did I hurt his feelings? Good, I hope you did hurt his feelings. And if anything, I don't think you did enough enough to like really make this kid feel like an idiot. And holy crap, I don't know what this other guy's saying where it's like, it's a rule in our local shop that we let kids win. Dude, your local shop sucks and you guys probably play at a very low level. Like if this is your 4-year-old cousin, then sure, let him win. But again, I paid a $40 entry fee for this tournament. If you and I face off against each other, regardless of if you're a man, a woman, a child, an elderly person, I'm gonna treat you the same and stuff your face in the dirt. I'm gonna make you regret ever picking up that deck of cards. Because holy crap, anything besides that is a waste of my time and money. Like seriously, if you've never gone to a regional tournament or a national tournament or any kind of like competition in card games in general, whether it's Magic or Pokemon or whatever it is, there is so much time, effort, and energy that goes into making the perfect deck. Sometimes there's a lot of money that goes into it. You're investing hundreds of dollars and hundreds of hours just to work out all the combinations that come along with this deck. You're working out tactics you're going to play against decks that are just way better than yours. You're trying to work out ways to beat the meta decks that are just going to dominate that tournament. And the entire time, you're just trying to stay focused for the 9 hours that you're playing. So no, you're not the jerk, but you also should have done more. You should have reported that kid immediately and thrown him to the wolves, dude. And I say this again as someone who played competitive card games throughout my entire childhood. I competed in dozens of regional tournaments and I went to 2 nationally ranked tournaments. So I've got no sympathy for cheaters and that kid deserved to get humiliated. But hey, that's just me, dude. I'm a brutal competitor at heart and I just absolutely can't stand this crap. But if you disagree, leave a comment down below. Do you think this kid should have been called out for cheating? Let us know down below. I would love to hear what you have to say. If you're liking Am I the Jerk and you're kind of vibing with what we're doing here, then trust me, the vibe is also at Am I the Genius. Check them out. They're going to be linked down below in the description. We love what they're doing over there, so please give them a subscription. You will not regret it. But also, we want to hear from you. So leave a comment, bro. We love reading what you got to say and getting your feedback on stuff, man. And this one comment I found is one that I really like because it kind of highlights how I feel about if I won the lottery, which is like the main story that was shared in that specific video. And this user says exactly what I'm thinking. Like, if I won a bunch of money, nobody's gonna know except for like my husband and like maybe my kids would know. But dude, I would take it even a step further. Nobody would know in my life. I would keep that a secret to my grave. I don't want anybody knowing about that. Like, come on now, that's crazy. I also want to mention before we go any further that if you want to share your own stories, go to amithejerk.com/submit. That's the best place on the internet to share your experience because we're looking at that all the time. Okay, anyways, let's jump to the next story. Am I the jerk for not wanting to let a neighborhood's demon child into my house just to do arts and crafts with my little cousins? Because after this kid started destroying things and acting like a nuisance, I essentially banned this kid from our house entirely. And now his mom is really pissed off and it's causing a lot of problems for me both in person and online. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I often babysit my cousins, ages 10, 7, and 5 with my mom. And while they're at our house, I make worksheet packets for them and we do arts and crafts. And you know what? They love it and so do I. Well, a few weeks ago, my neighbor, who I will call Sandra, saw us doing projects in my backyard and asked if her kids, ages 10 and 7, could join us. Now, I agreed, but soon after, another neighbor asked if her son could join as well. The kids get along well, like I really should mention that, and it became a routine that whenever my cousins came over, the neighborhood kids also came over too. However, my mom tells the parents to like send their kids over without telling me first. And this is really frustrating and sometimes leaves me short on supplies, but we usually just make it work if we can, which eventually leads us to the current issue. 2 weeks ago, the kids were over making things out of air dry clay, and another neighbor, who I will call Melanie, asked my mom if her son, who I will call Henry, could also join, explaining that the neighborhood kids don't really play with him. Now, not wanting to be rude, my mom welcomed him in without informing me, and guess what? Henry immediately caused some issues. He was pushing kids, he was hogging the clay, and he was screaming when he didn't get his way. After we told him several times to wait because the clay was drying, he ran upstairs into my bedroom, noticed my iPad, and started playing on it. When my mom tried to take it away, Henry literally threw it on the ground, cracking the screen, and threw a massive tantrum on my bed. Now, enraged at this point, I packed up the supplies, I sent the neighborhood kids home, and I sent my cousins inside to watch the TV. Well, my mom was angry because she started getting upset text messages from the parents. I then told her that Melanie owed me money for my screen, but my mom told me, oh, just let it go, I'll repair repair it. Well, the next day I went to Melanie's house to ask her for the repair money, and instead of apologizing, she then got defensive. She actually said to me, "Oh, I don't owe you anything," and then slammed the door in my face. And so, just to avoid any more neighborhood drama, I decided just to pay for the repair myself. Well, yesterday my cousins were over for an overnight stay, and my mom invited the neighborhood kids over for papier-mâché making, except for Henry. Melanie then found out somehow and came over and demanded that he be let in with the other kids. Now, my mom was at the store at the time, and this is where I straight up told Melanie no, explaining no, Henry cannot come in. She then immediately got defensive and asked me what I meant by that, and I just kept repeating no, I can't, and I shut the door. Melanie waited outside until my mom got back from the store, and when she returned, Melanie started screaming at her. My mom then brought Henry inside anyways and told me to just deal with it. But I put my foot down and I told her that if Henry stayed, I was putting all my supplies away. Well, the other kids overheard this and started to get upset. But ultimately, my mom took Henry right back to Melanie's place. Now, fast forward, and Melanie is, of course, bashing me on Facebook for excluding her son. And so because of this, the other two moms are no longer letting their kids come over. I feel terrible for taking that away from them, but I simply cannot handle Henry in my house anymore. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because I really just don't know how to handle this anymore. Okay, dude, you gotta stand up for yourself. It's time to jump on Facebook and fight fire with fire, bro. First off, of course you're not in the wrong. This kid broke your iPad. I did a quick Google search and it literally costs like upwards of like $400 just to repair an iPad screen. Like sometimes it can get that high, and if I had to pay that just because some stupid kid ran in my room and threw it on the ground, I would lose my mind. I'd be like, no, you're not welcome in here. Oh, and by the way, in case you're wondering, Henry's 8 years old. This is not like a 3 or 4-year-old. This is an 8-year-old who, in my opinion, knew better. Like, there's no reason to act like that, especially in someone else's house. And for me, Melanie not being willing to pay for any of the damage that her stupid kid caused, that is like proof in and of itself that she is not a good mom. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm also not sorry. I hate people like this. They literally don't discipline their kids, and then if their kids do anything wrong, they suddenly blame you for it and be like, wow, I can't believe you're excluding my disruptive, like, obnoxious child. He only destroyed your expensive device. What's the big deal? No, I'm not gonna pay for it. Why would I do that? Like, holy crap, lady, you're about to like ruin the fun for literally every other kid who wants to be here, who we have no problem with. Like, it's only your demon child that's the problem. I hate kids like this. I hate parents like this. So seriously, you are not the jerk. These people are out of their minds, and your mom is completely culpable in all of this. She's sitting there trying to be like, oh, don't rock the boat. Don't worry about it. I'll pay for the repairs myself. But she never did. She just wanted this to blow over so she didn't have to deal with anybody hating her. I hate people like that too. Dude, everybody in this story sucks. I gotta be honest. Like, you're literally the only person being rational in my opinion. So yeah, dude, jump on Facebook and flame that lady. Literally stand up for yourself. Like, there's no reason for you to sit down and take this because this is unacceptable. And I don't think you should sit there and deal with it in the slightest. My girlfriend essentially gave me an ultimatum saying that if I don't propose to her before the end of the year, that she's gonna break up with me. And it seems like really poor timing because I have little to no savings and I'm struggling to find a job. And right now I just don't know what to do. Here's what's currently going on. Okay, for a bit of backstory, I've been with my girlfriend for like 3 years, and honestly things are well considering our relationship is a long distance relationship. But with that in mind, I also go and visit my girlfriend once every 4 months during my studies. And I know I'm so grateful that I'm able to do that considering my friends are not able to go back to their home country as often as I do. Now, I do plan to get married with her. I mean, we've dreamed of where we're going to have our wedding at, how we would pull off the wedding, who we would invite, and so on. However, financially, I'm not there currently. At the moment, my savings are half as much as my girlfriend, and I only really save from the allowance that I got from my parents. Now, for some background, I recently just graduated from a university based in Australia, but currently I'm in Indonesia. After I finished my studies, I got a temporary graduate visa that lasted like 2 years. That way I could apply for jobs, and honestly, it's been nothing for like almost a year. Well, earlier this year, she basically made an ultimatum. She said that she wants to get engaged by the end of this year, otherwise we're gonna break up. I have a decent savings, and I promised her when I get a job this year, I will propose to her as soon as possible, and the current job market has been terrible. So much so that I have to work for my dad's friend remotely, and with the current income that I get, I barely save money. I save less than a third of when I saved during my studies. Now, I know she could be an understanding person, but not really about this ultimatum. So seriously, how can I have some kind of chat with her so that she can understand that I just need more time? Because right now I just don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I think it just might be a situation where you're just not ready to get married. Because, dude, you clearly don't have any money. Like, I don't know about anyone else, but I would probably not make that step if my finances weren't at least a little bit secure. Like, you're going to be spending all your money on the wedding itself, and then you're going to get into this marriage and be like, oh, we have nothing. That sucks. Holy crap. What do we do now? I've got no money. Like, you don't even have like a job lined up. I don't know. It just seems like the timing is really bad. So for your girlfriend to be like, well, if we don't get engaged by the end of the year, I'm going to break up with you. Like, that is an obvious sign that she probably wants to break up anyways, and this is just not looking good. I don't know. I think ultimatums are a bad idea pretty much no matter what. And just from like personal experience, it only leads to like resentment and somebody hating somebody else. So yeah, this is kind of really sudden. I think this would be really hard for me to stomach, in my opinion, especially if my girlfriend's like, hey, I know you're dirt poor and you're struggling to find any job after college. And yeah, you probably have student loans, but if we don't get engaged by the end of the year, I'm breaking up with you. Like, I know for me personally, considering everything the original poster's going through, I would probably be reconsidering my entire relationship with this lady, because this feels just a bit rushed and I would hate to have to be like put on the spot for something that really does affect the rest of my life. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my college scholarship money over to my mom? Because she's already done that before with the stipend I received for high school for being a scholar. And honestly, with college starting, I don't want that to happen again, but I also don't know if I'm in the wrong for wanting my money for myself. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I recently achieved a major milestone in my life. I got awarded a full ride scholarship to a top university in the Philippines. And this full ride basically gives me 100% free tuition and a monthly stipend. Now, instead of being happy, as this is my dream school, I'm currently filled with anxiety because of my mom. For a bit of background, back in high school, I was also a scholar, and at the time, I also received a monthly stipend. The problem is, the moment that money hit my mom's digital wallet account, it was micromanaged and completely gone. She used it to pay for household expenses like the internet and utilities, and whenever I asked for school supplies, she would tell me that she didn't have the money, and that my stipend wasn't even enough to cover the house anyways. Well, because of this, I spent my entire 12th grade basically begging for a scientific calculator, and in fact, I graduated without one, despite asking both of my parents daily about this. Now, here's where the massive double standard steps in. My older brother is also a scholar. However, my mom lets him keep 100% of his stipend for his own savings and school needs. When I asked for a tablet for school, she said that we had no money, and yet she turned around and asked my dad, who works overseas, to send extra money, specifically to buy my brother a brand new laptop and tablet. One time, I once spent a small portion of my own high school stipend on school supplies without telling her beforehand, and my god, she blew up at me. She insists on calculating exactly how much I spend of my money on the household first, promising me that I can have the remainder, but guess what? There's never anything left. But now that I'm starting college, my stipend is a lot more every month, and I'm terrified she's going to confiscate all of it for the house again. My mom is a public school teacher, and while I know her salary is really tight, I really believe both of my parents have terrible financial management skills. My mom openly admitted that she expected us to study for free. And you know what? I did my part. I secured my free education. I will be turning 18 before college starts, so I want to exercise my legal rights to basically take complete control of my finances. I want to open up a bank account strictly in my name, and I want to have the university deposit my stipend there directly. I want to contribute to the household, but not give every cent of it, because I worked hard for this privilege so I wouldn't have to beg her for basic, like, academic necessities anymore in the first place. So if I did this, would this make me a jerk? Like, am I going behind my family's back, or am I betraying my mother? Because I just don't know what to do anymore. Bro, this shouldn't have happened in the first place in high school. Holy crap. She really was just taking that money and being like, we're gonna use it on the house, and just completely taking away any chance you had at, like, I don't know, having any school supplies. So I really think you're doing it right. I think you're setting up a bank account and, like, you're gonna be moving that money in your name so your mom can't have any say in it. Like, that's really smart. And personally, I would stick to that plan, dude. I would not give in no matter what she says, because this is your money, and the money you had in high school was yours as well. So personally, if I was in your shoes, I would be making sure this was locked down. I would not give her a single inch, because that lady will take a mile if she has the opportunity. She'll take every cent of that and be like, oh, we need this for the house. Like, that really sounds super selfish, and it's just gonna, like, sabotage your academic career, because you are going to need that money to go to school. And I think her trying to take that away from you is really toxic and something you definitely don't need. Am I the jerk for potentially being the reason my teacher got let go? Because it's kind of convenient that after I left a bad review about this guy, he suddenly left his job without any kind of explanation. And now I'm not sure if this is my fault and I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so our school does this thing where we fill in forms based on how we felt a teacher has helped us throughout the year. And you know what? I gave an incredibly scathing review of one of my teachers because I feel that he just simply cannot teach. It was incredibly critical and borderline offensive. And the majority of our class later failed our exams, including me. It's also important to note that I go to a pretty academic private school, so student and parent satisfaction is very important since they're the ones funding it. Anyways, just yesterday, he announced that he was leaving. There was no warning and no explanation as to why. It's kind of unusual since we're at a pivotal point in our year, like we're starting our exam coursework now and he's leaving right in the middle of it. And honestly, I don't know if he got let go or if he just quit, but I've got to say that a lot of people think that he got let go due to the sudden announcement and his attitude when discussing it. Now, the main reason I think it's me is because people have failed his class in previous years. Like, he's known for his scores being particularly bad. But here's the thing, he never faced any consequences back then. And he's been teaching for like, I don't know, 10 years or something like that. On top of that, he's recently become quite bitter towards me. Now, whether it was my review or the test scores, I do feel a bit guilty. My review was excessively detailed and very negative. And so I have a feeling I probably had something to do with it. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Like, did I cause this guy to lose his job? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this, but no, you're not the jerk. Are you kidding me? Anyone who has this kind of reputation and this kind of like teaching style, where they're hard to get along with, they just don't do a good job, and everybody's failing your class, that, in my opinion, begins and ends with this guy being a crappy teacher, and it has nothing to do with you, the random student coming in one year, and rightfully complaining that he's a bad teacher. And you know what? You're not alone in this. I've actually experienced something similar to this, where I complained about a college professor, and then they literally took like a year sabbatical. And I couldn't help but think, like, did my bad review completely set them over the edge? Like, what happened here? So bro, I completely get it. Like, I totally understand where you're coming from. But the reason why I gave that crappy review is because they were a crappy teacher. Everybody was having a hard time with their class. Nobody was getting any of the material. And they were kind of like what you're describing, just a terrible teacher. So yeah, he could be pissed off at you as much as he wants, but this guy did this to himself. Like, seriously, none of this is your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. If anything, you were honest and you said, yeah, this guy sucks and I really don't like taking his class. And I'm sure the school was like, okay, now we got a really good reason to let him go, or maybe he's gonna quit or something. So no, of course you're not the jerk. You just did your due diligence and you let them know exactly how you felt. And if that resulted in this guy getting fired or let go or like quitting on his own, honestly, I don't think that's your fault and I don't think you should worry about that. My entitled sister-in-law demands that we don't post any of our wedding photos online, as she said she was unhappy with the way she looked and that she felt she looked like a fat pig. So, as a solution, I cropped her out of all of our wedding photos so that we could still post about our wedding while also keeping my sister-in-law out of the picture. But now, as a result, she's freaking out on us, claiming that we're trying to erase her from the memory of our wedding. And with everybody slowly turning against me and my wife, I'm now left wondering if I might be the jerk in this situation. Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my wife and I recently got married and it was amazing. The wedding was set at a riverside farm, and so we had photo shoots outside on the fields before the ceremony. We started taking photos at around noon, and my sister-in-law was one of the bridesmaids. My sister-in-law has always been a negative person ever since I met her, and is always trying to make small judgmental comments, while my wife is an incredibly kind person. They have very different personalities, so I never questioned why they weren't close, and assumed that my sister-in-law was included in her group of bridesmaids to appease my wife's parents. Because my sister-in-law and my wife have never been very close, she was at the end of the line of bridesmaids and usually was at the edges of group photos. While taking the photos, my sister-in-law was the only one complaining about things like the sunny weather and how her dress was absorbing the heat. I don't know much about dresses, but it was maybe about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Most people in the photo shoot group ignored her comments, and it wasn't an issue for the rest of the day. We ended up getting the photos of both the shoot and the ceremony from the photographer 3 weeks after the wedding. We promptly sent the photos to the people in the photo shoot and told them that we planned on using the photos on social media. Now, most people thanked us for the photos, but my sister-in-law called my wife and was very angry, yelling that she looked like a fat pig in every photo and demanded that we not use any of the photos with her in them. For context, my sister-in-law is bigger than my wife, but not to an extreme extent. She doesn't look unhealthy, and I've never heard her have any body issues before. but admittedly, I wouldn't know much about it. In the wedding photos, she doesn't really look any different from her normal self. My wife tried to reason with her, saying she looks just as pretty as everyone else, but my sister-in-law did not want to hear it. She reiterated that if we used any photo of her on social media, then she would never speak to us again and would put us on blast. My wife was really hurt by her sister's outburst, and I was very bothered that she thought she could tell us what to do with our special moment. Well, this is where I might be the jerk in this situation. I decided that if she had that much of a problem with this, then she didn't need to be in any of the photos. So I cropped her out and I posted those versions to social media. I thought it would be fine, and it was easy since she was at the edge anyways. Well, after posting, she then called me even angrier than before and accused me of trying to erase her from the memory of the wedding. I told her I only did it to accommodate her wishes while also getting to use my own wedding photos. My sister-in-law hasn't talked to us in a week, and my wife's parents are mad at us for upsetting my sister-in-law. While my wife is on my side, she thinks that I could have been more mature about it. But I don't think I did anything wrong, and I accommodated her already unreasonable request. So am I the jerk for cropping her out of my wedding photos? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all, because I would have done the exact same thing. If she doesn't like the photos and she thinks she looks like a fat pig, as she put it, then cropping her out of your photos, in my opinion, is the only solution. For you to be denied the right to post your own wedding photos on social media or put them wherever you want, all because of your sister-in-law acting like a very selfish individual, in my opinion, is incredibly selfish and unbelievably toxic. She's trying to control your wedding photos and is like, oh wow, if you post these, I will never talk to you again. So in my opinion, your solution makes total sense. She really thinks that she looks bad in these photos, then fine, I'll just crop you out and post them without you in it. But it's so convenient that because you did that, she then fires back and says, you're trying to erase me from the memory of the wedding. But it's like, hang on, which one is it? If you're going to be offended that you're in the wedding photos and start demanding that none of this get posted, then you have no right to get upset when someone posts it without you in it. Like, this idiot wants to try and play both sides of the fence and still get offended no matter what you do. Like, that is so selfish in my opinion, especially when it comes to your photos of your wedding day. So in my opinion, I think you are well within your right to do whatever you want with those photos. And it's so funny to me that the parents are stepping in and being like, wow, why did you upset your sister-in-law? Because it's proof right there that they would rather dance around the issue and try to avoid approaching the sister-in-law instead of calling her out on her awful behavior, because the way she's acting is completely inappropriate, and I think you're well within your right to edit her out. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I overreacting by saying that my stepson owes me an apology for the way he treated me and my wife? Because right now, my wife is requesting that I be the bigger person and just forgive him. But at this point, I'm still so angry at the way he treated us that I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my stepson, who's 20 years old, graduated high school just over a year ago. February of last year, my wife and I helped him get a loan for a truck, which was about $7,000. At the end of May or early June, he packs his things and moves out to live with his girlfriend, with whom he knows we are not overly fond of. And this is all without ever telling us that he's leaving, and we find out he's gone when we both get home from work. He then refuses to return any phone calls at any time, because apparently he's too busy, but somehow will immediately respond to text messages almost every time. I try to call him when I realize that he hasn't just taken his things, but some of mine as well. But when I do, I get told that he can't talk as he's too busy, but then spends the next 2 hours immediately responding to what could have been handled in a 5-minute phone call. By this point, I'm angry, so I said, fine, you will need me long before I need you. And I decided to stop initiating contact. And for the record, I've been with his mom for 8 years, so I've been in his life. At the end of last July, my aunt passed from cancer, but even then, I still did not get a single word from the boy. Now, my dad and I were very close. My stepson knows this and knows my father very well. And at the end of November, my dad passed away and left everything to me. But once again, there is still radio silence. 2 weeks to the day after my dad passes, my last remaining aunt passes away with cancer, and I still don't hear anything from him. At the end of this last May, my stepdaughter is graduating from the 8th grade, and my father-in-law is coming into town from 4 states away. The boy and his girlfriend show up at my dad's house while I'm at work because somehow they know we've been remodeling and planning to move in there, so he can't claim ignorance to dad passing away because they literally knew to look for us. The neighbors call me and they let me know that they are at the house, so I call and I tell them that they can leave now or I can have them arrested for trespassing, but they are not to be there if I or my wife are not there. So apparently they're here for the graduation and it's really tense, but things go fairly smoothly. And after graduation, they go back to their place maybe 3 hours away from us. 2 weeks ago, the boy calls his mom to tell her that he and his girlfriend have split up, but they are still living together and she's moved another guy in with them. And he wants to know if we'll make a truck payment for him. Oh, and he also told us that his truck has been broken down with a ruptured brake line for almost 2 months. I said that we are not making a payment unless I have some kind of collateral to ensure that he will pay us back, because he has also quit his job at the same time they came down for the graduation and has been unemployed ever since. A few days pass and he asked if he can come back home. My wife agrees to letting him come back, and I make some phone calls to borrow a car trailer and a 1-ton pickup to haul him home. And trust me, he knows that I'm not happy, so it is literally a 3-hour ride in complete silence. Well, last night he comes in after spending some time with his dad's family, whom he had treated the same way, where he totally cut contact with them until he wanted something, and he is now telling the wife and I about some things that they had talked about. And honestly, I just tuned out of the conversation. After he leaves the room, she turns to me and starts trying to discuss some of it, and I said, I'm sorry, I tuned it all out. I'm still very upset with him, and I don't see that ending anytime soon. And in order to keep my cool, I had tuned out the conversation with him. She then asked me to do something, which I view as a very unfair thing to ask of me. She says, well, can't you just forgive him for me? I told her that's a tall order, and I don't think it's fair to ask me, since he has not once apologized for all the lies he told, the failure to even say he was sorry to hear that my dad or either of my aunts passed away, as well as showing up at my dad's house, or for that matter, a thank you for coming and getting him and his things, despite how angry I am with him. And I also said, why is it that you feel it's okay to ask that of me, but not okay for you to talk to him about how he's treated all of us and suggest an apology? I've had my job 3 years, and when the guys at work heard what had happened to my dad, they gave us a card, but I literally live with this kid and I couldn't even get a text message. So am I overreacting in this situation? What should I do? Oh man, this one really upsets me. The son in this story is absolutely in the wrong, and your wife is absolutely incorrect in my opinion if she thinks you're the one that needs to initiate any kind of forgiveness that might be going on. Your stepson literally should be on his hands and knees thanking you and your wife for even letting him back in the house, especially after the way he ghosted you and your wife and left literally all of the sudden overnight. Because the truth of the matter is that he only called you up because he needed something, not because he cared about you or he was sorry about your family passing away. It literally all came down to the fact that he wanted something out of you and he knew he could get it probably through his mom instead of you. His behavior in my opinion is incredibly spoiled and it's super selfish. Seriously, it's just so uncalled for. And I think the original poster hit the nail on the head. Why should you just automatically forgive him if he hasn't taken any steps to try and be forgiven? Why is that on your back and not his? He's the one that wronged literally the entire family, not you. You literally bent over backwards to make sure this kid's needs were met, and then he runs off with his girlfriend and then begs to come back. So no, I don't think you're overreacting for demanding an apology, because truly, I think your stepson sounds like a spoiled brat. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for forcing people to move out of my seats at a demolition derby, especially after I reserved them 2 weeks in advance? Because after they refused to move and I got the cops involved to make them move, they said that I'm a disgusting individual and that I'm also a terrible person. And now it's left me wondering if I did something wrong or if I might be in the right for deciding to stand up for myself. Here's what happened. Okay, so let's get right down to it, shall we? I bought 5 tickets 2 weeks ago for seats at the demolition derby happening near us. And when you buy your tickets online, you must choose your own seats. And I specifically got aisle tickets, so it would be easier to leave in case my 2-year-old got fussy. Well, the event started at 6 o'clock, but that includes the opening ceremony and some little kid races, so we waited an hour to head in because of that, and the line was exceedingly long, so we decided to occupy our toddler with other attractions until the real demolition derby started. Well, when we go in, we see that all of my seats are taken. We politely asked them to leave, and every single one of them told us that they had already been there for an hour, and that someone was in their spot, so we need to go find new ones. But then their story changed by saying that they double sold the tickets for this spot. We asked them politely to please move or we would get security multiple times, but they just kept saying, "Go ahead, we're not moving." So I did exactly that and I grabbed security. We apologized to security and explained the situation, and they told us we were going to get our seats and not to apologize for standing up for ourselves, and so they followed us to ensure that these people would move. Well, when we came along with security, they they literally could not believe it, and they started calling us disgusting, saying things like, "I hope you're happy, you are all just terrible people." We responded that they should take it up with the ticket people, since I had receipts that I bought them 2 weeks ahead of time, and the cop did ask to see my tickets and send the date of my email for proof of purchase. And you know what? I was going to get the seat that I paid for. If they had just gotten up the first time when we asked politely, they wouldn't be embarrassed with the cops standing right there. The people complained to the cops, and so the cops told them to show them their tickets, and they would happily do the same to whoever is sitting in their spot. But instead, they stormed off saying that it wasn't fair. Now, you could get tickets day of for standing room only, but even those sell out really fast. And you know what? With all things considered, my son had the best time. There were multiple fires in the engines, and almost all the cars were totaled, and you could smell the burning radiators from the stands. I kind of feel like a jerk, but I don't actually feel bad about it. Had I been at a professional sporting event, concert, or a theater production, I definitely would have done the same thing. So now I turn to the internet. Was I the jerk for making these people move? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. These people not only stole your seats, but they also tried to make up these bogus excuses as to why they stole the seats. Like they had an excuse for literally anything you could ask them. And they did all of that in some desperate hope that you would just walk away, that you would accept defeat and stand in the back like these people probably paid for. And in my opinion, I cannot stand people who act like this. They go in there and they take the nearest seat, and then they just pray that nobody shows up and they get to reap the reward of sitting in that spot. It's all super toxic, and I just can't stand when people do this. So no, you didn't do anything wrong. These people are the real disgusting individuals who really are terrible people for trying to steal your tickets. You reserved them 2 weeks in advance in hopes that you would have a good spot to watch the event. So for them to act like they're somehow entitled to it, in my opinion, is completely disgusting. An entitled customer tries to argue with me over $2 when it comes to buying a salad bowl. And after dealing with customers like this all the time, I'm honestly so sick of these petty complaints that I really hope people like this don't come in anytime soon. Here's what happened. So I work at a thrift store, and the way that we price our items is by category. For example, if you bought a jigsaw puzzle or a stand mixer at a regular store, they would most likely ring up as jigsaw puzzle and stand mixer respectively. But at my store, they would ring up as toys and kitchen instead. As a result, we get a lot of people switching tags from one item to another. Now, we can't explicitly say that the person that bought something with a wrong tag to the register is the one that did it. We say, "I'm sorry, but the tag that is on this item is incorrect. The actual price is this amount." Or we'll say something like, "We have to send it to the back to get a new tag," or even suggesting that we call someone to get the correct price. Now, I am a lead cashier, and I am able to give a price to something on the spot, as long as the customer doesn't mind it being non-returnable. Well, here we have this customer with a salad bowl with a wrong tag, and the cashier doesn't know the real price, as the tag on it says $2.99. When I get up to the front, I explain to the woman that the price is incorrect, and that I know we don't sell our salad bowls at $2.99 unless they are plastic or something like that, and that I could instead sell it to her for $4.99. Well, when I said that, she was definitely not happy with me, and explained that there were tons of salad bowls back there that were this price, and that we always are doing this to her, that every time she comes in to buy something, we change the price of something that she is buying, which really made me want to say to her that if we are always changing the price on stuff that you buy, maybe it's because you are switching the tags. Now, I didn't actually say this, but it does kind of seem suspicious, right? Well, when she said that, I just smiled at her, and I explained that we are not changing the price because of her, but because instead someone switched the tags on her items, and that the tag is incorrect. This is just our store policy, and that I could call a manager if she really wanted me to. Well, when I said that, she said no, that it was the fact that we are changing the price, even though we priced it at $2.99, and that she would have bought it if it was $2 or even $12. Well, I explained to her again that we don't price our salad bowls at $2.99, and that this was just wrong, and that I was giving her a correct price based on our pricing range. She ended up buying the bowl, and when I had time, I went to our kitchen aisle and I looked at the prices on each of our salad bowls to look for any of the ones that are labeled as $2.99. Well, every single salad bowl, bigger or smaller than the one she bought, was literally $6.99, and hers was the fanciest one, so I think the $4.99 bowl was a great deal. But regardless, I'm so tired of customers trying to argue with me about prices that seriously, it really wears me down, and it's super annoying. Yeah, this one really kind of strikes a chord with me, because I've dealt with something like this similar when I worked retail. Like seriously, it seems like sometimes the customer is unwilling to listen to whatever you're saying, and will get hung up on a $2 difference that they are completely wrong about. And I'm sure if you had more time on your hands, you probably would have loved nothing more than going back there with her and having her show you what the prices actually are for the bowls. Because chances are the price was definitely not for $2.99, and she is most likely the one who's switching it around behind your back. Am I the jerk for leaving my friend while we were on vacation after she decided to go off and spend the night with a couple of guys that she just met that night? Because now I'm finding out that something bad happened to my friend, and right now I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong for deciding to leave. Here's what happened. My friend and I are 22-year-old females, and we drove to our vacation in North Carolina, and the trip started off rough, as my friend was being very short-tempered and rude for the duration of the trip. The night before I left, we went out drinking. My friend decided to befriend a group of guys and bar hop with them. I reluctantly followed as the hotel room was in her name, and she had the only key, and I did not want to just leave her out with them. Eventually, she got cut off at one of the bars we were at, and as we walked back to the hotel, she's walking with these two random guys. And mind you, we both have boyfriends. I tell her I am not going back to the hotel with these guys, and I will find a way to get my own room if I really need to. She then says that she will just go hang out with the guys somewhere else and mentions that she has lost the hotel key. I obviously tried tirelessly to convince her not to leave with the guys and to just ditch them. I tried to get her to go to the front desk and get a new room key, as her name was the only name for the room, so I couldn't do it. I tried so hard, but there was just no convincing her at this point. So the last I see of her is that she is at the valet trying to get her car. I then call my grandmother and I cry on the phone to her explaining the situation. Then I fall asleep on a bench outside the hotel, seeing as I can't get a room key myself. My grandma was able to call the hotel for me and somehow talk them into getting me a key. I then slept for a few hours, and when I woke up, I booked a flight home. I no longer felt safe with my friend because of the situation I was put in. I looked at her location, and she was an hour and a half away at what looked like a military base. I texted my friend and I let her know I was not okay with anything that happened, and I did not feel comfortable being with her the duration of the trip or driving home with her, so I decided to fly back that day. Well, she woke up and answered saying that she had no idea where she was at and didn't know what happened the night before, and she didn't know how she was going to get back to the hotel. But by this time, I was already at the airport about to board, and by the time I am off my plane, she had blocked me on everything. Well, today I wake up and I have text messages and calls from an investigator saying that he works for NCIS and that there was a case reported by my friend. He wanted to set up an interview so that I could better help them understand what happened that night. Now, my friend has not talked to me at all. However, she has talked to a mutual friend of ours saying that something bad happened and that she's been at the hospital for 2 days, but it has not even been 48 hours since we were at the bars together. So am I the jerk for leaving? If so, what should I do differently? And what should I do about this situation moving forward? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. You clearly dodged a very sketchy situation, and you absolutely did the right thing by not getting involved in what your friend was doing. Like, I can only imagine the worst of what actually happened at that military base, but just think what could have happened to you if you decided to go along with her. If you decided not to stand your ground and try to be there for her in some kind of way. Like, your gut instinct in that situation absolutely probably saved your life, because your friend is out of her mind if she thought it was a good idea to go bar hopping with guys that she's never met. Like, those are the prime suspects that would harm her, and clearly something did happen. And you know what? That honestly is not your fault. It's an awful situation, don't get me wrong. Like, this really is very unfortunate, and I really do feel bad for your friend. But at the end of the day, this is literally her own fault. This does not fall on your shoulders in the slightest, and I know if I was in your shoes, I definitely would have left the next day as well. My entitled dad always gets everybody sick anytime he gets sick, and as someone with chronic illness as well as a bad immune system, I'm seriously at my breaking point, as I simply cannot get sick again because of this man, despite my desperate pleadings that he not only stay away from me, but also take my health more seriously. Here's what happened. Okay, so last year, my dad got the flu, and he refused to quarantine himself, and then made us drive in the car with him with no AC on. As a result, we all got the flu, and it was a horrible experience. But he didn't seem bothered by the fact that he got literally everybody sick. In 2022, he went to Europe for work, and when he came back, we asked him to quarantine because it was peak COVID. Well, he said he didn't feel sick and refused to wear a mask, and he hugged all of us when he arrived, and then for the next 2 days, literally touched everything in the house. And after that, as you can probably guess, he then tested positive for COVID. Now, luckily, nobody got sick, but we did fight with him because we asked him to take precautions and he completely refused to do so. He's now been feeling sick sick ever since Monday, and I asked him 5 times to get a COVID test and stay away from me because I was sick 2 weeks ago and I don't want to miss work again. I also have chronic health issues, so I don't need another illness on top of what I already have. Well, Friday, he decides to inform me that he knew one of his coworkers has COVID and he interacted with him days ago. He refused to quarantine and touched everything in the kitchen last week. He spent hours with my mom and sister in the car, continued to go to work, and even went to a Broadway show while feeling sick. He coughed everywhere because of his reflux and never even covered his mouth. And even still, he wouldn't get the COVID test. He drove in my car when I asked him not to because I don't want to get contaminated. Then today, he finally took the test and he tested positive for COVID, and he was laughing about it the entire time. This whole week, I've tried to stay away from him. I've tried to wash my hands, eat separately, and I wore a mask while my whole family made fun of me. I am livid because I have a horrendous immune system, and I don't understand how hard it is for him to comprehend that I don't want to get sick. So I'm quarantining myself because he refuses to do so. But even then, I'm starting to develop a fever and a headache now. Truly, I'm at a loss on how to deal with him. Sometimes he acknowledges that he should have been more careful, but then he just does it again. He told me that he barely feels sick and doesn't understand that while he barely feels sick, I may get COVID and have much worse symptoms due to my health issues. I'm honestly at such a loss because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Your dad and your family are super disrespectful. First of all, I'm sure that they know you don't have a good immune system. I'm sure this is not some kind of secret that you're keeping from them, and that they are well informed that you really should not be getting sick. So the fact that he still did this and was coughing everywhere and was refusing to get a COVID test or quarantine or anything like that is a massive sign that he literally just does not care. He thinks that this is just a joke. Meanwhile, you're the one who's gonna have to pay for it. And that is so unfair for you. Literally, you're just trying to live a healthy life and you're trying to stay out of taking more sick days from work. And here he is just walking around being like, oh, I feel fine. There's nothing wrong with me. And just completely disrespecting your space as well as your health. So in my opinion, I think it might be time to be very blunt with him and tell him straight up, listen, when you don't quarantine, I get sick. And if I get sick, then my life is at risk. Either he's in denial for some reason that no, you're not actually that sick, or he's just completely incompetent about what it means to have a bad immune system. But either way, his behavior is absolutely disgusting. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would be looking to probably move out, especially if I had chronic health issues that literally jeopardize my life on a daily basis. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amIthejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled parents have spent a lifetime treating me like the lesser son, all because they simply love my older brother more than me. But after my older brother announced that he is not moving back in with them after college, they lost their minds in a way that I've never seen before, and I'm honestly still shocked and I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I've been away for 2 years, and I kinda expected that I'd be back to post one last time in 2024 because my brother went for a 4-year bachelor's degree, much like I am currently doing. For those who remember my previous posts, I'm the guy whose parents basically got their butts verbally handed to them by the family for bad favoritism towards my older brother. Crap really hit the fan on my 18th birthday because my parents barely put any effort into it and went all out on my brother's 18th birthday in 2020 during the pandemic. They even managed to get a DJ for the party, and then they presented him with a car. Well, on my 18th birthday, I got no car or even anything close to a similar party, even though my academic standing was better than my brother's. I basically worked too hard for my parents' approval, and I never got it. When I asked them why my brother got a car and not me, they claimed that my brother worked harder for it, which was later confirmed to not be true when I got a bigger scholarship. Well, my grandma happened to be eavesdropping, and she laid into my parents, and then she got the rest of the family involved. And for the record, they were planning on getting involved anyways. My grandma just stepped things up right then and there. But after several family members laid into them, my parents just tried to save face and buy me a car, but they treated me like a brat who was getting a new toy when they gave me the keys. It was a late 90s Subaru that I honestly thought was great, but it turned out to have a blown head gasket that had barely been holding together with sealer. My parents treated me like I was a brat for wanting equal treatment, and then when the car went bad, their reaction was to apathetically shrug and call it karma, which caused my grandparents to start it all over again with them and caused a huge family intervention. I got many people messaging me and asking if having a car was really necessary, and that I basically forced my parents into it. But I didn't force anything, and it would have happened anyways if I didn't ask my parents why. And you know what? I really did need the car. I had no way of having a job without one. My parents lived 10 miles from the nearest bus stop, and I literally had no way of making money before college without a car. And no, I couldn't get rides. No one was available for that on a daily basis. So many people I talked to here tried to dance around my reasoning to insert their own logic, many of which I felt were projecting their own problems onto me. And then there was the straight up trolls and jerks. I don't even want to repeat, let alone remember what they all said to me, but a lot of them kept it up after I got the verdict that no, I'm not the jerk, almost as if they had an axe to grind, and it really did not help my mental state at the time. Now, as you can imagine, my family laid into my parents all over again in that family intervention, and by the time they were done, they looked like scolded kids sitting there looking at their feet. The Subaru was sold as junk, and my grandparents essentially forced my parents to buy me a better car. So I ended up getting a Honda Civic, and my uncle went over the car with a fine-tooth comb before they bought it. And that time, my parents didn't even treat me like a brat. And yes, I still have the Honda, and yes, it still works fine. I've kept up with the oil changes and the like, and I've not had any accidents either, as I really am a careful driver. But honestly, the final thing that broke my parents before I left was finding out that I got a better scholarship than my brother. Any excuses they'd previously had to favor my brother so completely were thrown out the window, and were forced to give me words of encouragement I knew they didn't mean. And in wondering why they disliked me so much, I later found out from my grandma why I was treated differently was because my parents had wanted their second child to be a girl. My grandma ended up admitting even more to me later after I left for college. Before I was born, my parents were so convinced that I would be a girl that they bought a bunch of girl stuff without even checking my gender through ultrasound. Well, I found out from my grandma about a year ago that my mom tried raising me as a girl for like the first 6 months of my life. She was putting me in girls' clothing and calling me by a different name, and my father completely enabled it all. And I know this is all true because my grandma showed me old family photos of me and my brother when I was an infant, and I was wearing pink in all of them. There was even a visible name tag on some of them, and on it had the name my parents wanted for a girl. But once word got out, my parents stopped dressing me as a girl. My grandparents told my mother that trying to raise me as something I wasn't even giving me a choice on whether or not I wanted to be that. And although my family is rather old school, my grandparents are surprisingly open-minded people, and they put the hammer down on my parents. So the girl treatment stopped, but instead of new clothing, they gave me my brother's hand-me-downs for years. That is, until my grandparents noticed that as well and did something about it. Finding out all of this made me realize that my grandparents kept my childhood for being far worse than it was, and they never told me until this past couple of years. So to that end, I am incredibly thankful for them. My mother apparently also struggled to call me by my real name for 2 years or so, and because my parents didn't get a girl, they refused to connect with me like they did my brother. You know, the boy that they actually wanted. And when my grandparents heard I wasn't getting anything new like my brother was, they said that they would petition for guardianship over me, and that they had evidence of the various things I described too. Well, my parents couldn't stand for anything that could become a public scandal, so they stopped with the hand-me-downs and pretended to love me for a while. But as I got older, it degenerated into complete indifference, and then maybe into hate. I'm honestly not sure. Hate means that you still care in some kind of way, but indifference is the actual opposite of love. I just know my parents couldn't accept that their favorite son wasn't the best at everything compared to their unwanted son. And since I moved out, they've barely interacted with the family. They threw themselves into work, in part because the rest of the family forced them to contribute to my college, like they did my brother's, but also because to them, working was the only thing that gave them a reason to tell everyone to leave them alone. My grandma suspects they've even slept in their cars a few times just to avoid going home. I only saw my parents at Christmas at my uncle's house for the past couple of years, and they barely even spoke to me. Now that I was living my best life away from them, I guess you could say that they just stopped bothering to act like I was their son. They don't want me anymore after the family humiliation they feel like they suffered, even though they know they brought it on themselves, and they've become workaholics to do little else. My grandmother told me my bedroom is basically exactly how I left it on the day that I moved out. My parents have not even gone inside of it, but they kept my brother's room clean and ready for the day that he'd finally come back home after college, except that is not what happened. They flew out to see him for his graduation and had a big celebration with him, and of course I was not invited, not that I could afford it in the first place, but my grandparents went along and they gave me all the juicy details. My parents were still convinced my brother would be coming back home, and that's when he awkwardly told them that he already secured a job through an internship that he had done the past year, and that he had found an apartment of his own too. Well, when they heard this, my father became furious, and my mother lost her mind crying and begging him to come home, but he refused. You see, this past 2 years, my brother and I have reconnected a bit. He found my account online and then he called me. He wasn't angry, but honestly just wanted to talk. He admitted to me that our parents put him through a lot as well. Our parents absolutely smothered him, especially when I wasn't around, and our father was also quite strict with his expectations. So the fact that I did better than my brother when our parents had invested everything into him just completely broke them. And now they're extra broken because my brother refused to come home with them. The way our parents treated my brother is also the reason we stopped connecting as siblings until this past couple of years. He did bully me at times when we were growing up, but that's because being the favorite went to his head. But it was favoritism with strings attached. And when he realized that, he got counseling after moving out. My brother also has a girlfriend that he met while in college, and he kept her a secret because he knew our parents wouldn't approve, and well, they didn't when they found out. So my brother blew up on them, especially when my mother referred to his girlfriend as if she was some kind of like lady of the night, if you know what I mean. Mind you, my mom hasn't even met her at this point. For the record, my brother's girlfriend is in nursing school and a year away from graduation herself, and my brother says that she's the best. Now, I've never met her, but she sounds wonderful by the way he's described her. My grandma told me my mother went so far as to hire a private investigator to find out who my brother's girlfriend actually was, and she was actually irritated to know that she was squeaky clean, and she came from a good family on the same side politically too. But in her mind, she was the reason my brother wasn't coming back, even though my brother made it clear he decided that before even meeting his girlfriend. My father had basically become stoically silent about it from what I heard, but my mother let it slip to my brother that she'd hired a detective, and my brother gave our parents a piece of his mind, and this led to a whole argument about how they gave him everything, and he was ungrateful for not coming back. But he called them out that being the favorite child is awful as well, because they nearly made him like them, and this absolutely broke my parents to hear that. My brother told our grandparents, and they staged another family intervention, one that I was even involved in through video call. My parents tried to not even pay attention to me, but even my brother told them to talk to me. We all told them enough was enough. They had 2 sons and they needed to start treating us fairly, because they let something as idiotic as not being born the gender they wanted to ruin their love for me from day one. It was then that my father hit his breaking point. He started screaming out loud, "You want us to admit we messed up? Well, yeah, we did. What do you want us to do about it? You want us to time travel? We're paying for the original poster's college too. What more does he want from us?" Eventually, things ended very poorly in that intervention. My mom cried that she was sorry to me, but even then, I still didn't feel her heart was in it, because she didn't spend much time apologizing to me at all before moving on to my brother through the phone he was video calling from. And she spent a long time crying and apologizing to him. That is, until he told her to go back and actually apologize to me like she meant it. Well, it was at that moment that my father grabbed the phone and shut it off. Then he just sat down and told everybody else to leave. The last thing my grandparents said to my parents was that they were disappointed in them, and that maybe losing both sons has finally shown them that they should have never favored one of us. Right now, my parents are not on speaking terms with the rest of the family. My grandma heard a rumor they may be planning to move, but they have a paid-off country home and great careers. I feel like they would be fools to move. But since my brother isn't going back, and I'm not likely to go back either, I suppose it's not really an issue. I kind of doubt that they would welcome me in if I visit after the crap that went down, but I am still very thankful to them for helping to pay for my college. My student loans were significantly reduced thanks to them. But when it comes to being parents themselves, I think we can all agree that they just didn't do a very good job. Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that your parents absolutely suck, and they played favorites to such a degree that it literally almost ruined your life. Like, that's not fair for you at all, and from the sounds of it, especially based on your backstory, this has been going on ever since you were a kid, and that's just not fair. Not only that they didn't treat you correctly or even equally with your brother, but also that you just found out that they didn't even want you in the first place. They wanted a little girl and not a boy. So for them to treat you in this way and basically like ostracize you from the family and forcibly make you the rejected son, like that in my opinion is just straight up awful, because you did not deserve that in the slightest, and they are awful parents for the way that they treated you. An entitled old jerk demands a price cut literally only because of his age and his veteran status. But when I deny him his request, he claims that I'm disrespecting veterans for not giving him my product at a third of the price. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I build scale model ships because I'm kind of lame. Unfortunately, the genre is dominated by often angry old people who seem to think that the rest of us owe them everything because they managed to get old. Now, let me get down to some specifics. specifics. I have a lot of rare resin kits that I've collected over the years, and I have decided to offload some stuff that were mostly impulse buys. I checked eBay's sold auctions and other examples of recent sales, and I decided to price my items accordingly. I paid for a vendor booth at a show, and people really were cool for the most part. Many did bargain with me, and that's okay. I sold some bundles, and then I moved on to reasonable offers. Well, that's when this old entitled jerk steps in, who evidently was alive purely on his own self-persecution and bitterness. This guy saw a large resin model kit of a Japanese battleship that I had priced at about $375. This was the original retail, with recent sales well north of $400. He came by a few times, and he grumbled about my prices being too high for people on fixed incomes, but I honestly just ignored him. Well, towards the end of the show, he came back to my booth and offered me $100 for it, but I just flatly refused. He told me he'd always wanted that kit and would build it, and that he's a disabled veteran that feels better when he builds. But I was unsurprised given his previous whinings at my booth and prior shows. I'm not joking when I say he tends to walk even more laboriously when trying to rip off a vendor. So I told him thank you for your service, and then I said I would sell him the kit for $325 cash, which is what I paid for. Well, when I said that, the dude fell into a complete rage, accusing me of disrespecting veterans. He then told me to my face that I take advantage of old people who don't have the money for expensive things. Now, as a side note, this guy has gout breath, and trust me, if you know, you know. I reminded him that this is a hobby. It's not his home or his food bill or his transportation. After calling me everything but a white boy, the man kicks my vendor table and stomps away like a petulant sixth grader. Now, what was the worst part about all of this? I had other old entitled modelers asking me why I couldn't work with him because of the aforementioned reasons. They were less antagonistic, but they were kind of rooting for his side as well. And these same people wonder why younger folk don't attend scale model shows, or why it's becoming increasingly hard to find vendors who don't simply use an online auction or some kind of marketplace. I'm all down with giving deals, but trying to guilt someone into compliance is honestly a really awful thing to do. Yeah, that's really rude in my opinion. Just because you want something and you're like really adamant about getting it, doesn't mean you have to be like, wow, you disrespect veterans. You're making me pay full price instead of giving it to me at a third of the price. Like seriously, that is so obnoxious and so uncalled for. The original poster wasn't disrespecting this guy because he was a veteran. He was polite and professional, but still remained firm on his prices and said, listen, this is what it cost. So good for you for standing up for yourself, because this guy was completely out of line. Am I the jerk for yelling at my neighbor's kids after they knowingly scratched my car and then rode off on their bikes to try and avoid any kind of responsibility? Because right now in retrospect, I worry that I might have taken things a bit too far, because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so today I was doing some yard work when the neighbor's kid, who is about 15 years old, came out of their garage with their bicycles. We share a driveway since it is a townhouse block, and I had my car parked outside. Since I just got a new car a few weeks ago, I am admittedly paranoid about any potential damage. So as they wheeled their bikes through the space between my car and the neighbors, I was watching very closely. Once they reached the end of the driveway, one of the kids put the bike on the kickstand and walked back towards the house. And as they walked away, the bike fell over, hitting the side of my car. When they heard the bike hit the car and fall to the ground, they looked to the side of the car and then directly at me. And then they got on the bike and rode off. Well, I got up to check and see if there was any damage, and there was a black scratch on the bumper. The other sibling, who had not ridden off yet, was there, and I told him that the other had scratched the car and took off. So they said they would go get them and come back, and a few minutes later they returned. Well, when they returned, I raised my voice at both of them, and I said that when you damage someone's property, you don't pretend that it didn't happen. You apologize and you try to make it right. They were saying that they didn't see the scratch and that they didn't hear it, and all sorts of other excuses. But since they made direct eye contact with me when it happened, this only made me angrier. After a few minutes, I managed to get the scratch off the car, so there was no damage and the kids rode off. But with all of this in mind, am I the jerk for yelling at these kids instead of waiting for their parents to return home? What should I do? No, I don't think you're in the wrong for yelling at these kids, because clearly they did not want to get in trouble for something they definitely did. Whether you remove the scratch or not, the fact that they rode off trying to like escape any kind of responsibility, in my opinion, is super inappropriate. Because you have it right, in my opinion. If you damage someone's property, you absolutely need to fess up to it. It is the right thing to do, in my opinion, especially when you do it literally right in front of the person who owns the property. So no, I don't think you're in the wrong at all, because the way these kids acted by running off, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. My toxic entitled father demands that I allow allow him to move into my home, despite the fact that he has burned every bridge in my family, as well as mistreated me, my mom, and my kids. So I decided that enough was enough, and in that moment, I put my foot down hard, telling him exactly how I feel after so many years of awful treatment. Here's what happened. Okay, so my parents are divorced because my dad cheated, and there is a lot I could say about this, but when it comes to having a short version, basically, my mom found out my dad was cheating, and she started the divorce proceedings. As a result, my dad got vindictive and started to allow and encourage his mistress to get vindictive towards my mom. Well, when his mistress broke up with him, he tried to come crawling back to my mom, who shut the door in his face. And as a result, he spent the whole divorce process lashing out at my mom, me, and my other siblings and our kids, all the way to the point where we had to all go no contact with him. Anyways, the divorce was finalized. Dad and his mistress have been on again and off again, and they even had a kid together. There was some drama where he denied the kid was his, but when he got a paternity test, it all proved that it definitely was his. Well, fast forward, and he actually showed up to my house a few weeks ago and told me that he was going to stay with me. Mind you, he didn't ask me, he told me. And not just that, but he also told me that while he was here, my husband and I needed to move into the guest bedroom so he could use our room as it was an in-suite. Because, you know, he definitely needs that. Now, as you can imagine, I put my foot down, and I put it down hard. I told him after everything he did, how dare he darken my doorstep, and worse, not even apologize, not even to ask how I am or how his grandkids are, but instead to dictate to me that he is staying in my house. I am normally a pretty calm and go-with-the-flow kind of person, but I just lost it, and I screamed all the things that he did to us. The vindictive attacks, the way he used my kids as weapons to get back at me, and the smear campaigns that he led against my mom. Well, he ended up screaming back, "When you came crying home after you broke up with your ex, I let you stay in my house and eat my food, and I just let you come home. I didn't act like a complete jerk like you." Now, to be clear, the breakup he's talking about was when my former fiance cheated on me with multiple women. Oh, and also for anyone who hasn't read my previous post, it is not his house, it's my mom's, and he tried to steal it from her during the divorce to give it to his bratty mistress. So at that point, I decided just to shut the door on him. Long story short, the police had to be called as my dad refused to leave, and I even found out today why he tried to stay with me. His mistress has been bleeding him dry with child support and alimony. I think they've broken up for good, and he's had to sell every asset he had, and now he's completely broke. And I know this because he's staying with my uncle, who is his brother, and he called me to let me know exactly what's going on. The saddest and funniest part about all of this is how my dad won't stop talking about how heartless and ungrateful I am to literally anybody who will listen to him. And he is posting passive-aggressive posts on his Facebook account about how he does everything for his kids, but then they throw him to the curb. This whole ordeal over the last few years has been very hard. I've been going to therapy and have slowly been coming to terms with the fact that my father isn't the man I thought he was, and he likely never will be. But when he did this, it brought back a lot of hurt. I can't believe he would do this to me. I just don't understand how somebody can do this and can behave this way. But honestly, it is what it is. My dad's an entitled, vindictive jerk to everybody, and I never thought I'd be able to say that, but I'm honestly so glad that I can. Wow, imagine being so entitled that you show up to your kid's house who you have completely betrayed and say, "Oh, not only are you gonna let me in your house, but you and your husband are also gonna have to move out." Like, what was he thinking? After all the things he put your family through, as well as the smear campaign against your mom, and all the horrible ways he tried to use your kids against you, like, this guy is absolutely walking on thin ice. He has no business being around you or anybody else in your family, because he is literally just so toxic. And worst of all, he literally just doesn't care, because he seriously thought he could walk into your house and you guys would just let him in as if nothing happened. So truly, I'm so sorry that he acted this way, and I really hope you never have to deal with him ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I overreacting for not wanting to talk to my partner's family, as they basically said that I wasn't good for my partner since I have been unemployed for about 5 months? Because right now I am still very hurt, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my partner and I have been dating for about 4 years. I'm a lawyer and she works in tech, and we live together. Well, I lost my job this spring, and I qualified for unemployment benefits. I'm also lucky to have an emergency fund and no debt, and my partner's job job is great and she makes plenty of money. This period of unemployment was really good for me. With more time and energy to reflect, I admitted to myself that I had been depressed for over a year. I also realized that law firm litigation is not the right path for me. So for the first 3 months after losing my job, I focused on healing myself and rethinking my career direction. I went to therapy, I resumed exercise, I reduced my alcohol assumption, I began prescription medication, I kept a clean house and I played with my dog, I improved my relationships, enjoyed outdoor hobbies, read challenging books, did pro bono work, and met many people to chat about different career paths. I applied to about 100 or so jobs, and I even interviewed for a few of them, but it wasn't all that important to me. I also played a lot of video games during this time, often until the wee hours of the morning. I mostly played thoughtful, story-driven games alone, and sometimes when I was stoned. On occasion, I played multiplayer games with my partner's sister, who doesn't have many friends right now in her new city. My mental health improved greatly, and I've been in a full-time, white-knuckle job hunt for the past 2 months. I'm getting more interviews and hopefully something will pan out soon, but I'm supporting myself without issue in the meantime, and I still cover about 50% of our living cost. Well, yesterday, I overheard my partner having a passionate conversation with her mother on the phone. I realized that she was defending someone and accusing her mother of projecting, but I didn't want to listen in. A few minutes later, the call ended and she left the room with a sullen face. Then I asked her about her conversation, and she explained that her mother says the entire family is soured on her relationship with me, and they are very concerned about her. They also know, as a sister confirmed, that I am playing video games most nights and sometimes during the day, and that I use the herb, and as such, they don't think that I'm sufficiently focused on my career, and that our relationship is doomed as a result. Then, last night, my partner received text messages from her sisters. The texts were similar in tone and content, advising that she leave and offering their support. The text messages read as if I'm mistreating my partner, indicating that I'm manipulating her to stay with me while I fail out of my career. This completely caught me off guard. My partner's family seemed to really like me. Both of her siblings have stayed with us. I went to one of my partner's sister's wedding and have had quite a few positive social experiences hanging out with my partner and her other sister. The parents wanted us to go on a trip with them, which I abstained from because I had to work. How did their opinion of me become so negative so quickly after a single career setback? They know my partner isn't paying for me, and my work ethic is fine. My background is more of a hard-working underdog type of story than most, and I'm healthy and motivated again. And I don't mistreat anybody. I'm a gentle person who would totally be supportive of my partner if she actually wanted to leave me. And above all, my partner is an intelligent adult who knows her needs much better than they do. She can make her own decisions. I told my partner today that I don't want to interact with her immediate family anymore, unless doing so is necessary for some important reason. And when I said that, she said that she understood, but she was still upset. So am I overreacting in this situation? We all gossip, I guess, and I may also be overly sensitive to the relative socioeconomic class disparity between my partner's family and mine. And maybe I'm projecting some of the resentment I feel for how I've been treated in other situations by more privileged people. What should I do? Okay, I have to say I can kind of see both sides of this. For starters, I think her family really is trying to seek out her best interest, but they've gone way beyond the mark in my opinion. It's one thing to be concerned about your career path and what you're doing for a job, but it's an entirely different thing in my opinion to be like, oh, he's gonna hold you back. He's manipulative and he's being so terrible towards you. You need to dump him and move along. Because to me at least, that gives off this energy that they were almost like wanting to say that for a long time, and they finally got the chance to like express how they feel right then and there. As if this is somehow like the best opportunity to be like, okay, now you can finally dump this guy after 4 years. But on the other hand, I do understand that they're like, wait a second, this guy hasn't had a job for 5 months, and he's spending all his time playing video games and smoking the herb. Like if I was her family member and I saw that happening, I probably would be worried as well. But I would much rather have a conversation of some kind, instead of saying something like, oh yeah, get out while you can, this is a sinking ship, or something along those lines. Like that just seems like really extreme in my opinion. So with all that in mind and all the context that you could possibly have towards this story, I think you're completely justified for saying that you don't want to talk to these people anymore. They've shown their true colors in a way that you never expected because you thought they had your back to some degree, but it's clear that they want to play the toxic route, and I honestly don't blame you for not wanting to talk to them. My mother-in-law is incredibly intrusive in my life as she is constantly entering our room and cleaning our bedroom, all without my permission. And now, after dealing with this for so long, I feel like I'm at my breaking point because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, before I go any further, I need to give you some background. I'm a 26-year-old female and I got married a few months ago to my husband. Prior to this, we had been dating for 5+ years. We are from a country where the culture expects married couples to stay with the man's parents. Although I was very against this setup before the wedding, mostly because I already owned property that we could have used, my partner insisted that staying with his parents would be a better financial decision for us. Fast forward to now, and we've been living with his parents for a few months now. I moved into my husband's bedroom, and we have our own washroom as well. But all other spaces are not private, as they are shared with his parents. When we first moved in after the wedding, I noticed that my mother-in-law, who is a stay-at-home mom, would make our beds on days where we had forgotten or maybe we were running late. The one place I can call my own in this home is my bedroom, and it made me so upset that someone had invaded my privacy there. I expressed my concerns to my husband, and he spoke to her, so she stopped. And this was about 2 months into the marriage. At the same time, she would take our laundry in my absence and do it for us. This includes washing, drying, folding, and even putting it away for us. Initially, I thought she was trying to be helpful because I was extremely busy with school, but I still told him to tell her to stop because I don't want other people to be going through my clothing, especially my underwear or anything like that. I've also insisted that I do my own laundry, and after a few months of reminding her, she has finally stopped doing that. My issue is that every time I think she has stopped entering my bedroom in my absence, I find signs that she definitely was there. Every time my husband and I go on a trip or aren't home for a few hours, I come home to see my bed made, my belongings organized, and things put away in closets and dressers. I told my husband that this needs to stop, and he said he spoke to her. Since then, we also started to lock our bedroom door from the outside when we aren't at home, just to indicate that this space is not for others. However, the lock is really easy to open with a fingernail. Now, for context, I'm currently unemployed, but I'm going back to school in a month. I consider myself a clean person, and I make sure to clean our washroom and vacuum and clean our bedroom space weekly, if not more. My husband helps me as well, but he works a lot more hours, so I pick up the slack where I can. The only time there's any kind of clutter is if I or my partner and I are returning from a weekend trip and I have to unpack, but I can't find time to do so. My husband has been coddled by his stay-at-home mom since he was a little kid and doesn't find any reason to be concerned about her actions. I have always been an independent person, and I've lived by myself for several years, so this behavior is really odd and incredibly invasive to me. Last week, I came home from a trip to see my parents, and I noticed that my mother-in-law had supposedly organized all the clutter from our bedroom. She had folded all of our clothing and hung up a painting behind our bed that I was definitely not interested in seeing there. I was really upset at seeing this behavior still continue because my husband had reassured me that he had already spoken to her on multiple occasions. Well, I got really angry, and I told him that he must not have said anything to her if she thinks it's still okay to go through our things and our personal space. That same day, he spoke to her again and informed her that when the door is locked, it means that she is not welcome in that space. She then got really mad and said that it's her home and she can go wherever she wants, and that it's not right for us to ask for our space to be untouched by others. Essentially, my mother-in-law intentionally unlocked a locked door so that she could try to help us out, whatever that means. Now, I need to add one more thing. My mother-in-law has a problem with spending and buys anything that she sees. She has too many belongings for a house that size and doesn't know how to keep it organized. Her bedroom, the guest room, and the hallway, and even the basement is an indescribable mess that she hasn't gotten around to clearing for maybe 8 months. And yet she insists that our little bedroom is not clean and it must be attended to right away. I'm honestly freaking out because this makes me so uncomfortable and very weird, especially because she only does it when I'm not at home. I told my husband if this continues, I want to move out, but he thinks I'm being a little dramatic and that I should deal with the problem myself if it bothers me so much. What should I do? Okay, I'm gonna make this very clear and I'm gonna be completely honest. For starters, I understand there's differences of culture and all this other stuff going on, but my God, if I was going through this, I would definitely be moving out. The original poster has their own property. They have their own home that they can live in. So for them to be forced to live with their in-laws in this kind of way, in my opinion, from my very limited perspective of this culture, is very strange and foreign to me, and I just would not put up with that in the slightest. Now, if this house was big enough and there was enough room for you to have your own space and do your own thing, then I'm sure this wouldn't be a problem. I'm sure you and your husband could coexist with your in-laws no problem. But the fact that you have one room and one washroom to even have some kind of privacy privacy, even though you've tried to lock the door on multiple occasions? Like, that would drive me insane, and there's no way on earth I would ever put up with that. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be making plans to get out of that house. The mother-in-law in this story sounds incredibly intrusive, and she literally does not care about your privacy in the slightest, and that is not something that I think you should ever have to put up with. I've decided to go no contact with my friends whom I've known for a long time after they have repeatedly taken advantage of me. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm celebrating 2 years of no contact with my ex-friend of mine, who we will call Emma, and I figured this would be a good place to share the story of our friendship. Emma was bullied a lot, so I became her only school friend. As a result, her parents love-bombed me. They were buying me gifts and calling me Emma's savior and all this other stuff. Our other friend, who we will call Kate, was her childhood friend, and we became a cute group of 3. But by college, I realized Emma was falling far behind in maturity. Her mother would guilt trip me and ask me to help her poor daughter with basic things, including catching the bus with her or driving her, even though she could drive herself. It became very one-sided, with me paying and planning everything. To trick her into making more effort, I would make up excuses, teach her how to do it, or just simply tell her to do it herself. But things did not improve. Now, for example, we traveled with my new college group, and by the end of it, my friends politely asked that I don't invite Emma again. She made us almost miss flights and other deadlines because she wanders off to call her mom, or she loses things, or gets scammed, or randomly starts unpacking her luggage in public. She always needed basic help. She never pitched in for the Ubers or any of the food, and the hotel mixed up the rooms, and she refused to swap to try and make things easier for everybody. She even tried to interrupt and third wheel my one date night with my significant other, leaving me endless missed calls, pestering us for our location, and wanting me to pay for her Uber to meet us. I cried many times that trip, and I didn't want to upset her, so I told her the trip was too stressful in general. But her response was to say, "Well, I had fun. You just try to control things too much." Fast forward, and for her 25th birthday, she invites me and Kate to a dinner, but at the last minute, books a 5-star hotel room for us and asks us to pay her back our share. But I just straight up refuse, saying I have plans before the dinner and the day of. But Kate sends me a direct message privately, and she says to me, "This is really important to Emma. It'll mean a lot if we did the hotel, and it will be just like a sleepover. Just pay, and we'll do things differently next time." So I gave in, and I ended up paying. During the dinner, Emma was unimpressed by my gift, that it was just Chanel lipstick. When it came to paying the bill, Emma says, "You guys pay between the two of you. I'm the birthday girl." And I say we should have discussed this beforehand, and they both turned on me by saying, "You should know the birthday girl never pays." While they went to the other bars, I faked feeling sick and went back to the hotel room, calling other friends and my significant other for support. And that's when I decided to stop being friends. I left the first thing in the morning for my next event, upsetting both Emma and Kate because they actually hadn't organized a ride home, as they expected me to just drive them home. Now, I hadn't spoken to them for months, but they eventually begged to meet up and celebrate my birthday. And the event went surprisingly well until the bill came around. Now, I do not drink, but they went through 2 bottles of wine and cocktails. And despite all that, Emma wanted me to pay. She said to me, "You invited us out? You're the birthday girl treating us to a night out." And I'm thinking to myself, you are such a hypocrite. Kate was more reasonable and suggested paying food 3 ways and they would pay for their own drinks. But Kate's card wouldn't work and Emma never pays, so she forgot her PIN, meaning that I ended up paying. Kate immediately transferred me money, but Emma definitely didn't. And so began the final chapter of our friendship. For weeks, Emma kept dodging the question of paying me back for dinner, as well as for some concert tickets that she also owed me. I even started giving deadlines. I said to her, "Please have this done by tomorrow." Her response would be like, "Hey, how was your weekend?" Or she would just read the text message and not say anything else. I mean, the audacity of this lady. I eventually called Emma asking why she hasn't paid me back, and it's then that she admits that she doesn't know how to transfer money. We walked through it together, but she still never made the payment. I chased her up again on text messaging, and I'm still just completely ghosted. I asked Kate to get Emma to transfer me the money, and she said, "That's weird, she always pays me back." And that really hurt to hear. I continued to chase Emma again a few days later, but I'm still completely ghosted. And at this point, I had had enough. I sent her both concert tickets, and I told her to go with her sister because I'm not doing this any longer. But much to my surprise, that's when Emma immediately pays me. It took almost 2 months. She made all of the excuses you could possibly think of. She said to me, "I'm tired and I don't check my phone. You don't know how hard it is to be a receptionist. You expect so much of me, and this outburst has came out of nowhere. I can't believe you're punishing me." I then sent sent her a long text message about everything I had bottled up, including the travel story, her birthday and my birthday, being taken for granted and then some. And then I asked for space. Kate then calls me angrily and demands that I apologize for hurting Emma's feelings. But I said no, I'm not apologizing for this, and I'd like for the both of them not to contact me. A few days later, Kate sends me this big text message, and she does apologize, but then she accuses me of being inconsiderate. She says that I'm controlling and impatient. She justifies making no effort when traveling or for any social events because she's a guest and I'm apparently in charge. She even goes further to say that this is my fault because I should have been more clear with telling her to plan, pay, and put in effort, and that I should apologize for creating all this drama and hurting her. She ends her text passive-aggressively, saying to me, "Since you're so hung up about this and need me to make more effort or whatever, I'll plan the next thing. Are you free this next weekend? Where do you want to go? I'll go ahead and book it." But instead, I asked for a month of no contact, and then she didn't even respond. A month passes and I get another angry text message from her. She says to me, "It's been a month and 1 day now. Why haven't you reached out? I said I'll book this time. Stop hiding. We need to meet up and fight it out." Well, I declined, and I said the break helped me realize that I'm happier keeping our distance for now, and that I wished her well. And after that, her and her family immediately blocked me on social media, and that was it. Now, obviously, I'm well aware of the mistakes I made. My boundaries were not strong enough, and I fell for the love bombing, and I shouldn't have felt guilty for saying no. But now I know I will never get treated like that ever again. Wow, your friends can hardly be called friends in the first place. They took advantage of your kindness, they literally took advantage of your money like straight up, and they quite literally are hypocrites across the board. So honestly, I don't blame you for cutting them out of your life, because based on what you described, they do not sound like good friends in the slightest. My former toxic roommate was an absolute nightmare to live with and refused to pay her rent on time or even respect me and my husband while we were living together. But now, 3 years later, after we moved out away from this crazy Karen, we come to find out that she is not only still following us, but also saying terrible things about me and my fiance. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 24-year-old female, and 3 years ago, I moved in with my friend who we will call Karen. We have been friends for about a year, but had known each other and been acquaintances for roughly 10 years. This friend was known to be a little bipolar, but she respected me and knew that I had way clearer boundaries than her other friends. We moved in with my now fiance in a 2-bedroom apartment. We were paying 2/3 of the rent, while Karen paid 1/3. The first issue arose when she asked if she could move her dog in, and I said no problem. Well, I was working as an assistant manager for anywhere from 40 to 55 hours a week, and I would come home to dog pee and poop everywhere, and I literally mean everywhere. We're talking the floors, the couch, even the walls. The dog also chewed everything up, and it got into the garbage. I would let him out and clean up the mess, and then I would inform Karen that she needed to take better care of her dog. Well, she demanded that her job, which she typically works 6 hours a day, was too much for her, and that it was my job to take care of her dog. Meanwhile, she constantly called off, or she would show up to work hours late. At one point, I refused to clean it. So at most, she would pick up the dog poop, but she wouldn't even scrub anything. I mean, I witnessed one of her friends literally sleep with her face next to an unscrubbed dog poop stain on the couch, and I just about vomited. The second big issue arose when second month's rent was due. I texted Karen and my fiance, who for the sake of the story, I'll call him Bear, and I had our rent ready, and if we could just get together to write a check to the renters, that would be great. Well, she told me the banks were closed, and she didn't have any money, as if the banks not being open somehow made up for her poor planning. So we had to rearrange our finances to cover her third of the rent. I texted her that we covered it for her, and that she owed us 1/3 of the rent. She replied a few hours later that her mommy paid it, so her rent for next month would be covered. I replied that would mean that my fiance and I were only 1/3 ahead, and she would still owe me for next month, as we were the ones that paid extra. Well, she argued and was adamant that we were wrong, and that she was not going to pay. Another issue involved the food in the house. In the first month that we lived there, we spent $600 on food to fill the house and pantry, while Karen shopped with me and bought equal amounts of food. I budget very well with food, and one way that I do that is by buying store brand products. Well, Karen kept snapping that she didn't like store brand, and that I was pissing her off. I told her that what I buy for myself was none of her business, as we are both buying our own groceries. But then I caught her sending her boyfriend to work with my food, and we're talking like an entire 12-pack of something that I bought, and I definitely got very irritated. The food waste really ticked me off when one time I had friends over for a party, and I came out the next day to my food all thrown out or just shoved out of the fridge but still in containers. And Karen's Karen's only excuse was that there was no room for her food in the fridge, so she just emptied it completely. After 3 weeks, I ran out of $600 worth of food, and I had to yet again rearrange my budget to allow for more groceries. After this incident, petty and lazy stuff happened all the time. I tried to wash my clothes in our shared washer, and I would come back to my wet clothing soaking across the basement floor. We found a week-old rotisserie chicken in the microwave with maggots in it, and there was so much more, but honestly, it's just not worth my energy trying to type it out. After my clothing was found strewn across the floor, I came up really heated, and I said that my stuff better start getting respected. At which point, Karen's boyfriend tried to step up to me and my fiance, and I told him he had better watch himself. Karen then turned around and refused to look at me or talk to her boyfriend, but instead yelled that I needed to step up and clean up after Karen more because she was tired from work, as if I wasn't working way more than her. At this point, I agreed to sign the boyfriend's name, who we will call Steven, onto the lease, and I did this because it made it way easier for me to sign my name off of the lease, and I then informed Karen that I would be leaving as soon as possible. But then later on, I came home from work to my furniture on the front porch. I moved back in and I told Karen that she better not touch my stuff again before I move out, at which point she informed me that she paid rent early so I could leave since I didn't pay my share for that month. The very next day, I got a screen recording sent to me of a 15-minute Snapchat video of Karen's boyfriend going on a substance-fueled rant saying how he's gonna beat me up for basically standing up for myself against his girlfriend, and that my fiance was a big teddy bear, so if he tried to get in the way, he would fight him as well. He then went on a rant saying the house was a mess because it was my fault, and the dog mess was my responsibility. The whole video was a mess, and you could tell that he was very high, but it was more than enough to make us decide that we were just done. So I called my dad and I asked for help moving furniture. We showed up to our apartment and Steven was there, and that's when there was a massive altercation. Steven really got into it with Bear, so much so that I had to call the police because things really got bad. So the cops showed up and we gave our statements, and we had the cops watch while we took the rest of our belongings. And I wanted our statements taken so that my roommate couldn't manipulate the situation. And despite the altercation between my boyfriend and Steven, no charges were filed for either party. Karen has now made posts saying that it's on site as soon as she sees me, but I have blocked her on all social media and even went so far as to delete mutual friends that I had no interest in forcing to take sides. She has followed multiple social media platforms and has had friends comment on statuses saying awful things about me. Now, this is where things get really weird. I thought that maybe she was done obsessing over me for roughly 2 years now. I moved out and I became a mom, and I'm so excited to say that we are pregnant again with our second child. But recently, her fiance keeps coming up for the people you may know tab on my social media, and I got a notification saying that I may know him too. I felt like she was trying to follow me again, so I blocked him too. Well, lo and behold, a friend of mine came up to me and said that Karen was bragging that she found out the gender of my baby. And honestly, this is just such weird behavior. I feel like I will forever have a fan because no matter how hard I try to block her, I find out that she's still studying my life. And I'm honestly so sick of her, and I hope I never deal with her ever again. Wow, what a psychopath. Not only Karen, but also her boyfriend. Like, there are so many things that are wrong with this lady, but just to name a few, you are not responsible for her dog. That dog going to the bathroom everywhere and making an absolute mess, that is her responsibility. That's not something that you have to take care of in the slightest. So for her to sit there and be like, it is your responsibility, I'm too busy from work. But like, seriously, what work are you talking about? You work maybe 6 hours a day at that, and you're not even showing up for work, and you're showing up late. But even if that were the case and you had all this time taken away from you from your job, it is still this lady's responsibility to take care of her dog. That literally does not fall on anybody else's shoulders except for her. And it's so crazy to me that she's like, I already paid my rent for next month, so I don't have to pay you back for the rent I missed this month. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? You didn't pay for anything. We literally covered you for the rent that you refused to pay. Like, that part alone would drive me up a wall because I'm just like the original poster. I like to budget my money correctly, and I like to make sure I have money exactly where it needs to be. So for this Karen to not only steal your groceries and take advantage of you in paying the rent, like, that is just so unacceptable. So hopefully you can avoid this lady and her stupid crazy boyfriend, because both of these people sound completely unhinged, and the both of you absolutely do not deserve to be treated the way that they treated you. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My entitled in-law demands money back that my aunt gave out to the family in some kind of desperate ploy to steal from everybody. Here's what happened. Before before we get started, all names in the story are fake. Okay, so my wife's Aunt Louise is a great lady. She and her husband lived in the San Francisco Bay Area and bought their home in the late 1970s. After her husband passed away, she sold her home for well over $1 million and moved back to live closer to her family where she grew up, which is a farming area in Southern California. She lives very frugally, so she doesn't really have to worry about money. Aunt Louise had 3 children, who are all now in their 40s and early 50s. The 2 oldest are nice, normal people, but her youngest, by the name of Kay, is a real piece of work. She meets all the criteria for a psychological diagnosis of narcissism. Aunt Louise just turned 70. She's really happy about it and decided to celebrate. She's a very kind and giving person, and celebrating to her means doing something nice for others. Aunt Louise has 3 children, 14 nieces and nephews, and 40 plus grandnieces and grandnephews. I don't know how much she sent to everybody, but based on what she sent to my wife, and knowing how much she likes to be fair, the nieces and nephews each received a check for about $1,000. And based on what she sent to our kids, I suspect that each grandniece and grandnephew received a check for $500. There was also a very kind and personalized note to each person, saying how much she loved them and imploring them to do something fun with this money, and that we should not use it to pay any bills. It was generous and sweet, and when a couple of the kids came by this weekend for a barbecue, we talked about Aunt Louise, their plans for the money, and as I suspect was Aunt Louise's intent, we had happy conversations about fun plans. Well, that's when the email came in. For background, Aunt Louise's daughter Kay audits her mother's finances that would make the IRS blush. Last Christmas, she berated her mother for vacationing to New York City with a friend, which by the way, going to New York City at Christmas is something that Aunt Louise has always wanted to do. She has also frequently talked about plans for her inheritance, and all with her still very much alive mother sitting right next to her. Kay sent my wife and others an email claiming that her mother is suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's with a request. While we suspect this is Kay just being Kay, my wife still called Aunt Louise just in case. But all of this was news to Aunt Louise, who was completely lucid as always. Now here's the best part. In the email, Kay asked everybody to send the money they received from Aunt Louise over to Kay. She nobly volunteered to handle all the deposits herself to avoid being a burden on Aunt Louise, who is clearly too infirm to attend to such a taxing matter. Now, in light of the times that Kay has helped herself to Aunt Louise's money without permission, which is also known as stealing, I'm fairly convinced not a dime would have made it back to Aunt Louise. And I honestly cannot stand that woman and all the things that she puts my family through. Wow, that lady sounds like an absolute jerk. She literally tried to scam the entire family and be like, oh, send it back to me. It was a mistake. She's gonna need all that money back. Thanks. Like, first of all, if I got a check for $1,000, I either would have cashed it like right away, or I would have already used it for something. And secondly, with someone like this lady, who clearly has a sketchy past and is really just like a piece of work, there's no way I would ever agree to anything that she would request. So truly, I really hope that things work out for your family and you don't have to deal with Kay any longer, because her behavior, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. An entitled guest shows up an hour late for their dinner reservation and then demands a manager when I don't give in to their every whim. Here's what happened. Many years ago, I worked at a Michelin star restaurant on Fulton and Morgan in Chicago. Now, it wasn't the flagship restaurant, and at the time, it didn't have an active star, but it is still in the Michelin Guide, and it's like the casual feeder restaurant for the rest of the restaurant group. And it was also in the middle of COVID. So, in Chicago, there was a law that you had to be vaccinated in order to dine at a restaurant, which didn't hurt our business, but made our job a lot harder. Whenever someone would come in, I would have to say the following: "Hi, welcome in. My name is such and such, and I'll be your server tonight. But before we begin, can I see your proof of vaccine?" Once they show us that, I would then start getting their order. We would get them something to drink, we would check their IDs, we would check and see if there's any allergies or dietary restrictions, and then we would go from there. There was also a very strict time limit on a table, and we had to close at 10 o'clock. And it's not like we stopped taking people in at 10. Instead, we stopped taking people in at about 9 o'clock. And we were mostly booked for reservations anyways. And I'm talking an average of 200 to 250 covers a night, with each table having 2 to 3 reservations booked. Now, while working there, I had the pleasure of some very unique opportunities, including rushing a family of walk-ins through a 3-course meal with a dessert, because they only had about 45 minutes before we needed the table back, and we were well aware of that. But also, we dealt with some people who really thought they were so much better than everybody else around them. A man and his girlfriend came in, and they have a reservation for 3, and they're waiting to order. Their third, the guy's sister, just isn't there yet. I try to get them to order something, but they want to wait. And I'm just like, okay, but they ended up waiting for for like an hour before their third person finally arrives. Now, their third person was this gorgeous woman, and I was very relieved to see her join the group. So I go over and do my thing. I flirt a little for fun, and I ask them for an order. Now, at this time, we were nearly closing. Everyone else in the restaurant has ordered, and they say they need some time to look things over, and I give it to them. Well, when I come back, they still haven't looked. My boss then tells me to get their orders. I try again, but they say they still need time as they're catching up. But then the chef tells me to get their order. So I go over, and I explain to them that the chef needs their order, and I probably say just that sentence because I've worked here for like a month, and I'm not comfortable being bossy in this way. So my boss tells me the kitchen wants to leave, and I need to get their order or else they're not going to get one. So I explain to them that the kitchen will be closing soon, and they haven't even picked up their menus off the table. So the last two guys in the kitchen start to close down, and the kitchen is an open view kitchen with seating around it that's maybe 5 feet from their table, and the girl from New York is facing them. Now, how do I know that she's from New York? Well, the kitchen is closing, and she waves me over demanding the right to order. I explain that legally their table reservation is only for 2 hours because of the COVID restrictions. I explain that they've extended that stay past the point where they're allowed to have the table, and I also explain that the chefs are leaving, and that I have asked them to order half a dozen times, and that the kitchen has to leave. This woman then looks at me and says, "Well, I'm from New York," but I respond by saying, "Okay, well, this is Chicago." Well, when I said that, she demands to speak to the owner because she saw him walk in, and he had been working on a menu update while also wanting to step in and say hi to the kitchen. Now, the entire time I worked there, I heard him speak maybe like 5 times, and I saw him maybe once a week when the COVID surges weren't bad for reasons that would make sense if you knew him. I tell her that he, like the rest of our staff, has left, so I get her a manager, and I think we got them a dessert or something like that, but I'm not really sure. This woman had gone from being my favorite person in the restaurant that night to being a nightmare trying to get me fired just because she couldn't understand the fact that we had an operating procedure. The chefs that started packing up was our head chef and our sous chef, and he didn't really like me, but he knew that I wanted to do a good job, so he begrudgingly accepted me for the most part, but we were definitely not friends. But also, he had been there at least since noon, maybe even earlier, and had that schedule 5 days a week, and came in on his days off most of the time. This is a man who just wants to cook steaks and then go home. Like on an average week there, I served a famous chef stopping in because he was friends with the owner, not to mention the local celebrities, vineyard owners, CEOs, etc. A chef once drove from St. Louis to dine with us after getting off work on a Friday, then came back the next Friday to try more of our menu. And yet this woman somehow decides that she is the most important person that I have ever served and that has ever sat in our restaurant, and that she doesn't have to follow the same rules. I mean, she even tried to get the owner over here to fire me because I did what my boss required of me. I went from wanting to try to join them afterwards to being like, okay, this is why everybody hates New Yorkers, and I honestly hope I never deal with anybody like that ever again. Okay, for starters, I totally agree with the original poster when they have someone like this who appears to be really nice and wonderful, but then at the slightest inconvenience, they turn into a monster and they try to get you fired. But while we're on that subject, in my opinion, I think it is incredibly unprofessional to start flirting with a guest and also insinuate that you want to join them afterwards once you like get off the clock. That's really weird in my opinion, and I don't think that's okay in the slightest. Like, I've worked in restaurants and I just don't think that's a good idea, and I think you're only setting yourself up for failure in some kind of way. But honestly, that's just like a minor grievance in my opinion, because the way this lady acted towards you was super inappropriate. Like seriously, not only was she late to her appointment for this restaurant, but also the entire group just sat there and did nothing the entire time. They waited and chatted or did something else instead of ordering their food at the end of the night. Like if I was late for a restaurant reservation, I would be absolutely apologetic to the staff and be like, okay, I'm gonna order really quick, I'm so sorry. But instead, this lady strolls in and doesn't even like bat an eye. So that, along with her trying to get you fired, in my opinion is super toxic, and you definitely did not deserve to deal with that. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for canceling my family vacation trip after my brother blatantly disrespected me and refused to apologize? Here's what happened. I'm a 36-year-old male, and I have a 30-year-old younger brother who we will call Jake. And when it comes to Jake, he has always had a bit of a chip on his shoulder. Growing up, Jake was rebellious and often got into trouble, which strained our relationship. But over the years, I've tried to mend fences and be a supportive brother. A few months ago, I came into a significant bonus at work, and I decided to treat my family to a luxurious vacation vacation. I planned a week-long trip to a tropical resort, covering all expenses for my parents, Jake, and his girlfriend, who we will call Laura. Everyone was excited and we started making preparations. I put a lot of effort into organizing the trip, including booking activities and making restaurant reservations. I also took care of the logistics, ensuring everyone would have a seamless experience. Despite our rocky past, I was genuinely looking forward to spending quality time with Jake and the rest of the family. About 2 weeks before the trip, we all gathered at our parents' house for dinner. During the meal, Jake started making snide comments about my job and my lifestyle. He insinuated that I was trying to buy the family's love with this trip and made several disrespectful remarks about how I handled my money. I tried to brush off his comments, but they just kept escalating. At one point, Jake accused me of being a show-off and said that I was only doing this trip to boost my own ego. And Laura laughed at his jokes, clearly supporting his behavior. I was hurt and very angry, but I kept my cool for the sake of our parents. After dinner, I pulled Jake aside and I told him that his comments were out of line and very hurtful. But he just brushed me off, saying I was too sensitive and that I needed to chill out. I was stunned by his lack of remorse and the clear disrespect that he showed. I went home that night feeling upset and very disrespected. I talked it over with my wife, who suggested that I reconsider the trip if Jake continued to treat me this way. I didn't want to ruin the family's excitement, but I also didn't want to spend a week being disrespected. Well, the next day, I called a family meeting to discuss the situation. I calmly explained how hurtful Jake's comments were, and I asked him to please give me an apology. But Jake doubled down, saying that he was just joking and that I was overreacting. My parents tried to mediate, but it was clear Jake had no intention of apologizing. Feeling disrespected and unsupported, I made the difficult decision to cancel the trip. I informed the family that I could not, in good conscience, spend a week with someone who treated me with such blatant disrespect. My parents were disappointed but understood my decision. Jake, however, was furious and accused me of ruining the family's plan out of spite. Since then, our relationship has been even more strained. Jake has been bad-mouthing me to other family members and friends, painting me as the villain. And right now, I'm left wondering if I overreacted and should have just gone through with the trip for the sake of the family. What should I do? Honestly, in my opinion, I don't think you're in the wrong for deciding to cancel this trip, because Jake was definitely out of line. He was saying things that were very hurtful, and essentially he was making fun of you and really coming after you for no good reason. Like, this guy does know that you're paying for the entire trip, right? Why on earth would he bite the hand that feeds him, especially when you're trying to do something nice for the whole family? So no, I don't think you're in the wrong for choosing to step away, because the way he acted, in my opinion, was completely unacceptable. My crazy cousin decides to have an intervention for me, as she's convinced that I have some kind of substance problem. But after showing up to my own intervention that I never knew I needed, I quite literally laughed in my cousin's face and explained why she was wrong and incredibly stupid. But now, as a result, my mom is saying that I need to apologize to her, as she thinks that I did my cousin a great injustice. So I'm honestly very frustrated and very confused, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old male, and I have a condition which causes me to overproduce earwax. I don't tell people about it because I was bullied for it growing up, and only my wife and my parents know. Every other day, I have to put medication in each ear. I let it sit, and then I flush it out with a rubber-tipped syringe. This prevents ear infections, vertigo, permanent hearing loss, and worsening of my tinnitus. I have dealt with all of these things to some extent, so I stay on top of my eardrop regimen. If my alarm goes off when I'm with others, I go to the bathroom for 20 minutes and then I just knock it out. If I don't follow my schedule, then I forget, so I can't put it off ever. 2 weeks ago, my mom hosted a family dinner. My cousin, who we will call Karen, saw me waltz off to the bathroom to do my thing with my syringe in hand and asked me what I was doing, but I said it was just a minor medical thing. She kept pushing, but I didn't want to say anything because she gossips like crazy. I told her it's personal and then I scooted past. When I left, she was just standing in the hallway. She then asked me what took me so long and why the toilet didn't flush, but I said it was none of her business, and she responded by saying, "Oh, well, I didn't mean to offend you." Fast forward, and last weekend, my friend called me to invite me out to lunch with some of my buddies, and he said to meet up at his house so we wouldn't have to drive separately. Well, when I arrive at his house, I find Karen and my friend sitting solemnly on the couch. Karen then said that they were here to talk about my problem and that they just wanted to help out, but I said there is no problem. But right then and there, suddenly it clicked in my head what this was all about, and at that moment, I couldn't help but laugh a little bit out of shock. She then looked at me and said, "What's so funny?" And I said to her, "First of all, why didn't you talk to my wife or my parents?" friends. But she said to me, well, I didn't want to involve any of your enablers, which when she said that just made me laugh even harder. She looked annoyed and said that she was done trying to help me out. And when I said that's all right by me, she stormed out of the house. Well, when she left, I explained to my friends. They knew I have a condition, but never pressed me on it. And I guess when Karen approached them, they thought that I was lying. Obviously, I'd rather they know than worry about me being an addict when I'm definitely not. But regardless, I thank them for their support. Well, apparently, Karen had reached out to all of my friends through my social media, and we all got a good hearty laugh out of it, which Karen must have heard because she was, of course, eavesdropping. She then burst back in and screamed at me, "You need to tell them the truth," to which I said, yeah, that's what I just did. Eventually, my friends kicked her out, and we went out for lunch, and I thought that was that. Well, my mom called me yesterday and told me that she had talked to Karen about the entire thing and explained. She said Karen was upset with me and essentially called me a jerk for not explaining and for laughing in her face and embarrassing her. But I said I was embarrassed and that Karen had no right to my information. I think she shouldn't go around snooping and making any kind of assumptions. But my mom still thinks that I should apologize. So am I the jerk for the way I reacted to what Karen tried to do to me? What should I do? There is no way on planet Earth you are ever the jerk in this situation. Karen literally jumped to the assumption that you are some kind of addict and said, okay, now's my chance to have an intervention. Like seriously, how deep in drama do you truly have to want to get to try and host some kind of intervention based off of information you don't fully have? Like that is completely insane in my opinion, and there is no good excuse for that. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong, and you absolutely did not have to give her any information if you didn't want to. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not being willing to shave my head so that my sister who has cancer can use my hair to make a wig? Because right now, my mom and sister are furious with me for saying no to their request, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so before the story, I want to give some kind of background. Our dad is Pacific Islander, and our mom is just white. My 14-year-old sister and myself were both born in the United States, with our parents divorcing when I was 6 years old. However, I continued to live with my dad until I was 11 years old, whereas my sister stayed with my mom. I live with my mom now because my dad wanted to move back to the islands, but I didn't want to leave all of my friends. However, I know much of my family who still do live in the islands, and I try my best to keep in touch with my roots. This is mostly thanks to my dad, but my sister doesn't do this. Now, about 4 months ago, my sister was diagnosed with sarcoma, which is a kind of bone and tissue cancer. She's had to go through a lot of procedures and spend a lot of time at the hospital, and I've spent a lot of it with her and helping her, and while I don't mind helping her out, when she did get diagnosed, my mom expected me to drop literally everything to be there to help her, meaning that if she was at the hospital, then I'm at the hospital as well. If she's undergoing surgery or a stressful procedure, I have to stop everything I'm doing, including school, and sit in the waiting room as support. But all that I could handle, and it was a bit annoying, but honestly, whatever, I'll do it. However, recently the doctors finally decided they wanted to do chemotherapy, and my sister's hair has begun to fall out. So she shaved her head and is extremely upset about it because she really loved her hair. Well, the other day, my mom suggested that I shave my own hair so that a wig can be made out of it for her. For reference, my hair goes down to below my butt. However, the thing is, you're only supposed to cut your hair when a family member passes away, and it's a tradition my entire family on my dad's side upholds. And to be frank, I like my hair, and I have no desire to shave it, as I've been growing it out since I was a kid. I explained this to both my sister and my mom, but both of them are insistent that I should do it, and that a tradition like that is meaningless, especially since my sister might die anyways. But still, I told them no. They've both asked me several more times, and my sister even begging me. I once again reiterated why I wouldn't, and that asking me to was insulting. Now my sister is upset and saying that I obviously don't actually care that she's struggling, while also saying that I'm not trying to be understanding. However, I have bent over backwards for her, so the fact that she's going so far honestly really hurts. But she's also never asked me of anything like this before, and she is really upset. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all. Your mom and your sister are asking way too much of you right now. It's one thing to show up for doctor's appointments. It's one thing to be there for surgery or any other procedure that might be stressful. And it's one thing to drop everything, including school, just to be there for her. But for them to be like, oh, you need to cut your hair so your sister can have it. Like, that is insane in my opinion, and I just don't agree with that. In my opinion, that is taking it way too far, and that's them asking way too much of you. And because you told them no, it literally has led them to bullying you just to try and get their way. So instead of buying her a wig or, I don't know, covering up her head or something like that, or at least explaining to people, hey, my sister has cancer, so that's why she has no hair, like, instead of doing the obvious things, they literally want to be like, okay, you have to go bald and your sister's gonna have your hair. Like, that is insane in my opinion, and I just don't think that's a good idea. So no, of course you're not the jerk. Your mom and your sister are taking this way too far, and just because you told them no doesn't mean that you are automatically in the wrong. I found out that my husband has a secret folder on his phone that contains secret sketchy photos of my sister, and even after confronting him about this and exposing him for the things he's been doing, I'm honestly so hurt, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I have been married for 2.5 years and together for 9, and this incident happened this morning. My husband was sleeping and I took his phone to send pictures from his phone to mine, and I saw his hidden album that I didn't know about, so I clicked it to see what was in it. Well, there were a lot of photos and videos that he took of my sister. They were pictures of her in a bikini or pictures showing her legs and feet. Now, it's important to note that there are videos of pictures that he took, because it seems that he found an old phone of my sister's where she has pictures and videos, and it's videos of her trying on a new swimsuit or something like that. I mean, you can see him recording what is on the other phone screen of her whole body, and then him zooming in on very specific parts of her body. There are also pictures that he took last month of me and my sister in bed while we were just hanging around and chatting with our phones in our hands. He was on the sofa in front of us on his computer, and he apparently took pictures of us and then zoomed in on my sister's body. Another one was all of us with family and friends around the dinner table, and he had his phone below the table taking a picture of her feet. And these are just a few examples of what I found amongst others. And there are also a couple of my best friend, but it is mostly all my sister. Well, I woke him up and I confronted him, and he said that he was sorry, and it apparently started 2 years ago when we had a huge fight just before getting married. Now, for some context, we had a big blowout a little before our wedding, where he discovered I was on an app chatting with people that he didn't know. Now, there was nothing sketchy going on, but I was hiding it, and I was getting close to some people and being friends with them without him knowing. I also had an account to some websites that told stories that were a bit more spicy, if you know what I mean. And I just told him that I like those spicy stories, and that's just a part of who I am. But it is literally all just for me to read. Well, he justified what he was doing by saying that it started then, that he got interested in that website by checking it out, and he started projecting some of those stories into our real life. He said he always felt sorry and wanted to stop, but he didn't. Well, I told him that the issue is not about whatever he likes, but the fact that he has pictures of my sister, who, by the way, I have a very complicated relationship with. We are close as family, but there was always some tension and jealousy between us. He said that this was the most darkest part of him, and he promises to go see a therapist and never do it again. But I just don't know if I can get past this. How am I supposed to behave moving forward? How are we supposed to keep hanging out with my sister and her husband? I feel that everything is broken, that my future is shattered, and I honestly don't know what to do. Okay, this is absolutely so bad. This is seriously not okay, and there is no way on earth I would ever let this slide. That's just my opinion. Like, sure, some people can be more forgiving, but I'm one of those people that honestly I just would not put up with this for a second, and if I did, then there's got to be some crazy extenuating circumstances to like even keep me in that relationship. Like, this guy's taking creeper shots of your sister and keeping it in a hidden folder without your permission or your knowledge. Like, that sentence alone would be echoing through my mind pretty much for eternity, regardless of whatever excuse this guy comes up with. Like, it really seems like he's trying to justify this in some kind of way by turning it on its head right back at you. And that is insane in my opinion. Like, literally, there is no good excuse for that. So honestly, all I can say is that I am so sorry that you're dealing with this, because what your husband did, in my opinion, is completely unforgivable. Am I the jerk for supposedly exploiting a live painter at my wedding after this lady claimed that I wasn't paying her fair rate and that I was taking advantage of her? Because right now I'm kind of blown away by all of this, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 32-year-old female and I'm getting married next month. I went to a wedding recently with a live painter, and I wanted to also have a live painter at my wedding. So I found out that most live painters in our wedding area cost upwards of $6,000, and I realized it wouldn't work in our budget, so I let the idea go. Well, I brought this up to my cousin in Mexico, and she told me that she had a friend who we will call Anna, who was quite talented and she could ask her for me. Well, Anna called me and we discussed getting her to be our live painter, and she showed me some of her previous work. She is very talented, and she mentioned that she wanted to build her portfolio in our wedding area, and I would be her first live painting client in the United States. She said that instead of payment, if I covered her art supplies, airfare to the wedding place, and a hotel, she would be our live painter. Well, this worked out to be just over $2,000, and I extended her hotel stay for a week after the wedding just so she could go around and explore. We worked this out weeks ago in May, and then yesterday she texted me saying that she didn't feel comfortable working with us anymore as she has done some research and found that the market rate for someone of her talents was $3,000, and that if I paid her an additional $1,500, she would be fine with everything. She said that the rate in her area of Mexico is about $2,000, so she was happy before our deal, but since the wedding area is in the United States and that they have a different price scale, she said I was exploiting her. Now at this point, I had already paid for all of my big expenses like the venue and the catering, so I don't have an additional $1,500 to pay her. So I texted her back saying that it was unprofessional to change her previous arrangement and that I felt like she was pressuring me into paying more by hinting that she might not show on our wedding day. Now I did know the price of live painters before I asked her, but I was willing to pay in relation to our agreement, and I didn't know that she hadn't researched beforehand a price guide. She suggested our agreement, so I assumed that the discount on top was due to her being friends with my cousin. I have already reimbursed her for booking the flights and the hotel, so I am aware that she could make good on not turning up to the wedding. If she mentioned this before flights and hotels were booked last week, I would still think it's completely unprofessional, but I still would have tried to compromise right then and there. We have not signed a contract, so I'm not sure what I can even do in this situation. So am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? You are not the jerk in the slightest, and I think your friend Anna absolutely played you like a fool. She had you get all these things set up, and then she's like, oh, you're trying to exploit me. You're gonna have to cough up another $1,500 just for me to show up. Otherwise, you're gonna be exploiting me. Like, what are you talking about? Anna is literally the one who suggested this price point, and the fact that she's doing this right now after you booked everything, that in my opinion is completely insane, and it's another reason why if you want to have any kind of arrangement like this, you need to get things in writing. I don't care if it's a family friend or like a friend of a friend or someone that you really think you can trust. If it's some kind of like mutual contract between the two of you and there's thousands of dollars involved in said contract, then in my opinion, it all has to be in writing. This doesn't mean that you don't trust her. It just means that you want to cover your base no matter what happens. And this story is a prime example of what could go wrong in this situation. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. You did not exploit this live painter because honestly, she suggested the price from the beginning. And if she's unhappy with that, then honestly, that's on her and not you. Am I the jerk for banning my in-laws from my house after they performed a very cruel prank on my daughter? Because right now, I'm honestly starting to second guess myself. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 29-year-old female and I'm married to my husband, who we will call Matt, and I am currently pregnant with our first child. I also have a 7-year-old daughter who we will call Fern from a previous relationship. I have never had the best relationship with my in-laws, especially my mother-in-law, due to them judging me for having a child out of wedlock at the age of 22. They have never fully accepted me and my daughter, but I've just brushed it off to avoid drama until they took things way too far at my daughter's birthday. A few months ago, I held a birthday party for my daughter, which included all of my in-laws, and everything was going great until it was time for the cake. When my daughter was blowing out the candles, my mother-in-law thought it was a good idea to smash my daughter's face in it, and in the end, my daughter ended up having hot wax all over her face, and it ruined the cake. She was sobbing, and all the while, my father-in-law was laughing. Luckily, she wasn't badly injured. However, my daughter was really looking forward to this party and was devastated for days afterwards and was really confused as to why her grandparents would do this to her. After the party, my husband and I discussed things and decided to ban my in-laws from our house and future gatherings. We also made it clear that we would not show up to future family events if my in-laws were present. Well, when we announced that, they did not take this well at all and decided to post on social media bashing me and my husband for banning them from their grandchild's life over a harmless prank. And by the way, when they say grandchild, they mean my unborn son and not my daughter. Now, at the present day, me and my husband decided to throw a gender reveal earlier last week, and we obviously didn't invite my in-laws. It was a very happy occasion, but now some relatives from my husband's inside are telling us that we were cruel to have not invited them and that we are receiving a lot of backlash. I also think it's important to mention that this isn't the first time my in-laws have done something this cruel to my daughter without apologizing. They've made hurtful jokes relating to my daughter's skin color. For reference, she's half Middle Eastern and has an olive skin tone. They have also mocked her and bullied her for not having her biological dad present in her life and got extremely defensive when I defended my daughter. Now, I don't believe that I'm in the wrong, as I am only looking out for my family's safety and I love my daughter very much and that I would do anything to protect her. But this whole mess has me second guessing myself and has made me think that maybe I'm being way too cruel. So am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? You are not the jerk, and I think you are completely in the right for banning your in-laws. Let's kind of go over this for a second. They shoved your kid's face in a birthday cake and severely hurt your daughter in the process. Not just physically, but also emotionally. Like seriously, if my grandparents did that when I was her age, I would be freaking out. I would be like, wait a second, why would they do that to me? It's also pretty obvious that the in-laws in this story are just straight up racist. Like, I'm just gonna call exactly what I'm seeing, but they're literally making fun of your daughter because of her skin color. Like, that's obviously what's going on right now, right? I mean, that is pretty on the nose in my opinion of someone who's just blatantly racist. So it kind of makes sense why they would mock the fact that her dad's not present and literally try to ruin her birthday by shoving her face in the cake. And in my opinion, anybody trying to defend that and be like, oh, it was just a harmless joke. First of all, it's not harmless. The daughter very clearly got harmed. But also, I would question if they also feel the same way that your in-laws feel about your daughter. Like, are they also secretly racist? Like, they literally just don't care about your daughter in the slightest. They're more concerned about the in-laws' feelings than anything to do with the daughter who is very clearly hurt. So no, I don't blame you for kicking them to the curb, because in my opinion, that's exactly what they deserve. My entitled dad shows up to my graduation literally a day early and then expects me to skip all my finals just to hang out with him. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my dad was mostly an absentee dad who I had met maybe 4 other times at this point. And to top it all off, he has never even been to my college before. He and my stepmom wanted to fly in for my graduation, and they wanted to come a week early so that we could hang out. Well, I told him no, don't come until the Saturday that the ceremony is on, because I'll be working on finals and finishing up my 2 internships until Friday night. Well, guess who calls me at 2:00 p.m. on Thursday? He says to me, drop what you're doing and meet me at the bar near your campus because I'm in town and we need to celebrate. Well, I spent the next day and a half using every spare minute I wasn't studying, trying to explain to him that I'm busy with school. He actually said to me that since I already had a good job lined up for me after graduation, that doing finals wasn't important anymore, and I only see him once or twice a decade, so that should be my top priority. And you know what? He was pushy the rest of the time too. For starters, he was trying to get me to let him spend the night in my small 1-bedroom student apartment so that he could drink with me and all my college friends that he has never met before. Then he was telling me to no-call, no-show my student job so that we could get breakfast together. And honestly, all I have to say is that this guy is a buffoon. I'm now in my 30s and I haven't seen him since then, and I honestly don't plan to. It just blows my mind that someone I saw so little could feel so entitled towards my time and decisions during an important life event. And I'm honestly so glad I don't see him anymore, because that guy was seriously the worst. Wow, your dad is a complete deadbeat. Like seriously, the way he's acting is so confusing. So you're telling me he doesn't show up in your life except for like what, 4 other times? And then he's gonna fly into town against your will and be like, oh yeah, now it's time to party. You need to drop everything you're doing. It's time for us to celebrate. Like, dude, what are you doing? You don't even know the person you're trying to party with. You're literally just embarrassing yourself, and you're literally trying to disregard everything that your kid's doing by demanding that they give up on their finals and their internships. Like, this guy's a complete idiot. Who in their right mind who could even say, oh yeah, I'm your dad, would be like, yeah, you should just not go to your finals and we can get drunk together. Like, clearly this guy didn't go anywhere in life, and he wants to make sure that you end up in the same boat. So honestly, I hope you keep that streak alive and you stay away from that guy for as long as possible, because from the sounds of it, it does not sound like this guy is a good person in the slightest. An entitled Karen tries to steal my walker right from underneath me, claiming that it's not mine and that I'm actually stealing it from the store we just walked out of. Things got so bad that this lady actually got the manager involved in some kind of desperate attempt to make me hand over my property. And I'm honestly still blown away by this interaction, as well as the audacity of this Karen to say the things that she said to me. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I had a stroke 6 years ago, meaning that my balance and vision got messed up pretty bad. I can walk maybe 20 to 25 feet on a flat surface without any kind of help, but I need my walker to take long walks, and I take it with me whenever I go somewhere. Now, I normally have weekly groceries delivered to me at my apartment, but every month or 6 weeks, depending on schedules, my mom will take me to a specialty grocery store where I can get a lot of prepackaged meals that I just have to put in the microwave for a while. So we were on one of those trips, and we were waiting in the checkout line. Now, the walker that the insurance covers was a piece of cheap white plastic. So last Christmas, my mom bought me one that is black steel and titanium composition. It also has a pouch on the back for storing things, and when I need a break, I can lock the wheels and it has a fold-out bench that I can sit on. So while my groceries were being checked out, I folded out the bench and I sat down waiting. When we were done, I got up and unlocked the wheels while my mom rolled out with my grocery cart. Now, I had barely gotten maybe 5 feet when the entitled Karen of this story walked up and grabbed my walker. She said to me, "I'll be taking this." And I just said no, and I jerked it away from her and proceeded to follow my mom out to the parking lot. Now, usually, my mom will load the groceries in the car while I leave the walker on the side, and I walk my way around to the passenger seat. And then after loading the groceries, my mom collapses the walker and puts it on top of the groceries. Well, this entitled Karen followed us out to the car and was literally waiting there, tapping her foot, all while we were loading our groceries. I did not trust her, so I just stood there holding onto my walker. My mom said, "Go ahead, get in, it's unlocked." And I just shook my head no, and suddenly pointed the lady as to why I wasn't getting in. Well, thankfully my mom understood and finished loading the groceries. When she was done, she came up to me and folded down the walker while I walked to the passenger side door. My mom folded down the walker, put it on top of the bags in the car, and was closing the door. But right then, this entitled Karen started screaming, "You just stole store property." Now, I don't know if someone had gotten him or what, but a manager type person came out and asked what was going on. The entitled Karen was screaming about how we were stealing the walker and that she needed to use it. The manager then asked my mom about it, and she said straight up that it was mine, and even showed him the plaques bolted on it that had my name, emergency contacts, and my medications and the schedule I was on, just in case I needed them. Well, this entitled Karen wasn't having it. She kept screaming, "I need it right now. You are done with it. Give it to me." The manager then eventually told her that it was mine. It had information on it that pertained only to me, and that if she needed help, they could find her a mobility scooter or something. Well, this entitled Karen didn't like this, and suddenly went from a shrieking harpy to a sweet old lady. She said, "Well, maybe she could leave it here and I could use it and leave it when I'm done for them to come back and get it." So the manager asked us, well, would you be okay with that? And my mom, knowing that we would never see it again, said that we would not be doing that. We had other places that we need to go. Well, when we said that, this entitled Karen started screaming again. So we decided to just drive off. And I don't know how it ended for the manager, but I really hope that he survived that crazy interaction. Wow, this Karen really upsets me. Seriously, who walks up to someone and says, "Oh, I want that right now. Give me that walker, I need it more than you." Like seriously, what is she doing? Not only does she not work at this store, but she's also following someone who clearly needs it and is trying to act like, "Oh yeah, you're just stealing." As if her accusing you of stealing is somehow gonna make you hand it over to her. And you were 100% right. If you left that walker for her to use while you were gone, you would never see that thing ever again. This lady screams as some kind of dishonest monster who obviously would follow somebody out to the parking lot to try and steal their belongings. So good for you and your mom for standing up for yourselves, because the way this Karen was acting is absolutely insane. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that I will not follow her weird house rules and that she and her husband need to admit that they messed up? Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old male, and when my parents divorced, I was 6 years old. My younger sister was 4 years old, and my younger brother was 3. They shared custody of us ever since then 50-50, but now I don't have a custody thing set up because I'm an adult now, and I'm no longer a part of any of that. And at the moment, I stay with my dad. My mom remarried when I was 11, and my siblings were 9 and 8. Her husband was divorced and had 2 kids of his own who were 8 and 6 years old. He had primary custody of them, but in the summer, they would get longer with their mom. My mom and her husband moved in together a month before the wedding, and from that point on, they created these really strict and really weird rules that basically made sure that we were never a blended family and that there was always some kind of animosity. And here are just a few of those rules. They would say that if you want permission for something, you have to ask your new parent and not the regular popular one. Also, no biological siblings only playing together. Everyone has to mix in. There was also a ban on bedroom doors because they wanted to see that we're mixing in. It was also required that every day you would tell people in the family one thing you love about them. You also must give everyone hugs before leaving the house, and also you can't say someone's a stepbrother or stepsister, or even a half-sibling in the house. There were others, but those were the most damaging ones. My mom told me that she wanted us to be a happy blended family, and she did not want favoritism of parents or siblings. She told me I didn't just have a brother and a sister anymore, but I had two of each, and now I also had a second dad. And they enforced this too, or at least tried to. The hugs never took off, and I never told her husband or his kids stuff that I loved about them, and I never loved being with them. These rules led to fighting, and it also pretty much caused chaos if they took us places. We were all grounded pretty much all the time at their house. We also started doing stuff to make sure family vacations couldn't happen together. Her husband's kids would make plans with their mom to go to her for weeks when my mom and her husband had vacation plans booked. My siblings and I would ask dad to book his vacation first and then put it in their app. My mom and her husband would also get so frustrated, and they'd try to give us these talks. Mom would come to me and say that I was the oldest and I needed to set an example, and now that I no longer go to my mom's house, my siblings don't want to either, and they make a bigger deal out of it. My mom called me yesterday and told me that I needed to help create the family unit that they fought so hard for before it's too late. She mentioned me being the oldest again, and how I should be there for a week when we can all be a family, but I told her no, I don't want to. We are not a family. I told her that they messed up. They need to admit it, and they need to find a way forward, because none of the kids want to be a part of any kind of family that has this many rules. Mom then started crying down the phone to me, asking why I wanted to ruin her marriage and rejected the family that they were trying to be. She was asking how I could say that they failed when we wouldn't even try. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you didn't do anything wrong, and you're definitely not the jerk. Your mom and her husband sound obnoxious, and she's enforcing rules that literally nobody wants to follow. Instead of allowing this to happen organically, she's literally trying to force it in some kind of weird power play. And that's crazy to me. You can't just force that and be like, oh yeah, we're a family now. It's time to hug each other before we enter or leave the house. Like, I don't know about you, but that would drive me crazy. And if anything, it's just gonna have the exact opposite effect. Like, those kids aren't gonna like each other. They're gonna learn to hate and like despise each other pretty quickly. So no, you didn't do anything wrong. And I think the fact that you're 18 is probably the best part about this story, because at the end of the day, you really can decide where you do and don't want to live. And I know if I was in your shoes, I definitely would not want to live in that house. Am I the jerk for tidying up my son's apartment as a surprise? Because right now he is very angry, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Me and my husband, both in our 60s, asked if we could spend a night at my son's apartment while he was away. He lives in a different city that was along the way to the destination of our vacation. Well, he said yes, and then he gave us the keys. He told us beforehand that he has gotten some new furniture and is not quite sure how he will arrange it. He told us that the apartment was a bit messy, but if it didn't bother us, then we could borrow his apartment. When we got to the apartment, I decided that I should surprise him and clean the apartment for him. His carpets were a little dusty, so me and my husband carried them to our car to clean them in our own backyard once we got back home, because my son lives in a block of flats. I also put some of his new furniture in places that I thought looked nice so that he wouldn't have to do that himself. We told our son a week later when he came to visit us to get his keys, but he got visibly upset. He told us that we should have asked his permission to take his carpets, arrange his belongings, and move the furniture, or at least given him a heads up beforehand instead of doing this behind his back. He told us that it was disrespectful towards him and his personal space for us to move his stuff without permission, and that it is not something guests should be doing in another person's home. So are we jerks for tidying up my son's apartment as a surprise? What should we do? Okay, in my opinion, and maybe I'm alone in this, but yes, I absolutely think you're the jerk here. You really should not try to mess with someone else's house just because you're like, ooh, I'm gonna do it as a surprise. Like, rearranging someone's personal belongings is really disrespectful and, in my opinion, very violating of somebody's privacy, because that's not why you were there in the first place. So for you to move things around and try to pretend like, oh yeah, I know what you really want. This is something I would like, so you'll like it. Like, that is so annoying, and I would be upset as well. And yes, your son is 100% right. You did this behind his back. And in my opinion, his anger is absolutely justified, because he trusted you to stay there and be a good house guest. But now he probably thinks you went through all of his stuff and possibly snooped around looking for stuff that is none of your business. Because in my opinion, intentions do not excuse poor behavior. here, and I really think the way that you and your husband acted was completely inappropriate. Am I the jerk for cutting off my toxic father and his wife after they treated me and my girlfriend so poorly in the past? But now that our baby is born, my dad and his wife are trying to work their ways back into my life. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old male, and honestly, this story has a lot of backstory, but I will try to keep this as short as I can. My parents divorced when I was 13 years old. My dad, let's call him Bob, quickly found a girlfriend who we will call Karen. Karen is 7 years older than Bob, and she is already a grandma, and I'm not really a fan of her. As a quick character description, she is very intolerant, especially with other people's opinions, and does not accept obvious boundaries and is very demanding. Let me give you a couple of examples. She'll say things like, "Your mother really didn't do a good job with teaching you manners." She also said towards my 16-year-old sister, "You are not dressing ladylike, and you are a bit chubby," even though, by the way, she is very skinny. When I tried to say something about that, my dad immediately put it down, and he would just say that she is right. When I got to know her, I didn't think much of it, but through the years, her behavior became more annoying. I couldn't do anything with my dad alone, and I noticed a character swap in my dad. When I was a child, he was a very loving and caring dad. We used to do a lot of sports and fishing, and we spent a lot of quality time together. Well, it really changed last year. We were on a trip, and I was told multiple times that I should be so grateful that I'm allowed on it, even though it was my birthday present. The relationship between Bob and Karen also seemed a bit off. She is clearly in control, and I would dare to say that she is gaslighting him. Over the years with Karen, he distanced himself a bit and also tried to exclude my mom from family events, and did spend more time with Karen's family than his own children. But honestly, this all leads to my main point. My girlfriend and I found out that she was unexpectedly pregnant. This was a big thing because we are still very young, and she was still in her last year of high school and I was in university, and Bob and Karen were supposed to marry 3 months after we found out. So this is where the drama begins. At first, we didn't plan to keep our baby, but it all came along different on the day that we might not keep our baby, if you know what I mean. Long story short, during the procedure, my girlfriend had a lot of remorse and was very afraid. So when she was going to the room for the surgery, in there she had a panic attack. So the doctor decided that he wouldn't be able to perform on the circumstances. It was very shocking news, since it was the last day that we could do it legally. This was a very tough time for our relationship, as well as very challenging for her mental health, because we didn't plan to become parents so young. For reference, we are 20 and 18 years old. Now, my dad was perfectly aware of the situation, as I called him multiple times crying. Well, not even 2 weeks after the surgery day, we got a call from Karen and Bob telling us that my girlfriend was not invited to the wedding, as it would take away the focus from them. They were not willing to find any other ways to solve that differently. We asked if there would be the possibility to tell the family before the wedding and more, but they were clearly not changing their minds. My dad even went so far as to tell me that he was upset that he didn't get the chance to tell my grandparents about the pregnancy because I did already tell them myself. Well, because my girlfriend was not invited, I was clearly upset, and I tried to tell them that I thought it wasn't very appropriate to do that, especially in our situation. But Karen told me that I was being very ungrateful since she had done a lot for me. But honestly, even to this day, I don't know at all what she's done for me. Anyways, the following conversations were awful. My dad told me that I did upset Karen and said I should apologize to her. I asked him I was willing to do that if he told me why she was so mad, but he just shouted at me that I should know why and to just do it. At this point, I just didn't want to say sorry, especially without knowing the reason why. My dad told me that Karen's feelings were very hurt and it was all my fault, and she decided to not talk to me anymore and basically give me the silent treatment until I apologize. So I told my dad that I was also very hurt, but he responded that this was not relevant at all since they apparently never uninvited her and we just made up a false accusation. Now, I was ready to apologize for whatever was going on as long as one apology came back as well. Well, apparently this was an unacceptable suggestion because the shouting all started again. We then decided to pause the issue since our relationship was falling apart. When we came back to it a couple months later, I decided to put up some boundaries because the fights were very emotionally draining. I told him that I wouldn't apologize if nothing came back, and I would not accept any shouting any longer. Additionally, he should accept my feelings and my side of the story, and we should just move on as I did. The response again was more shouting. "Who do you think you are? You are not in the position to determine anything. I am your father and much wiser than you are." And by the way, he sees himself as incredibly wise and knowledgeable, people and is disappointed that no one believes him. Well, needless to say, their behavior didn't change, so I would not take his calls anymore, and he even tried to gaslight me with some messages. A week after my daughter was born, Bob and Karen wanted to come because they wanted to see her first, but I declined, partly because it felt entitling and they weren't really interested in the entire pregnancy. They didn't even ask if it was okay for us. They expected us to accommodate everything. After one disgusting voice message, after I left a negative review on his weird therapy course he's been taking, I decided that this was a bit too much, and I cut contact with them for 6 months. Meanwhile, my sister has told me that he hasn't changed and that Karen even wishes us bad luck, all in some kind of weird ploy so that we will come back begging. Luckily, we are doing very well with our baby, and we are honestly so happy. My remaining family is on my side, but my grandparents urged me to get into contact again. So am I the jerk for cutting contact with them and therefore not letting Bob see his grandchild? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. Bob and his stupid wife Karen sound absolutely obnoxious. They're intrusive, they're very rude to you, and they treated your pregnant girlfriend like garbage pretty much from the get-go. Like, that is completely unacceptable, and there is no good excuse for that. And I really think you're right about them being interested in seeing your baby. They didn't care about this pregnancy and even tried to punish your girlfriend because she was pregnant. Like, this is all so backwards, it's not even funny. So for them to react in the way they're reacting right now, as well as all the gaslighting and mistreatment, it all adds up to them just not being good parents and people that you definitely do not want in your life. So you know what? I don't blame you for cutting them off, because your dad and his wife are super toxic. And unless they make some major, like, groundbreaking changes, if I was in your shoes, I would never let them around my kid. Am I overreacting for wanting to quit my job after my boss told me that he knew it was a wrong decision to hire me? And after dealing with his awful treatment for so long, I'm seriously at my breaking point, and right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 17-year-old female and I really need some advice. So I have a big problem right now. I work at a small family restaurant during the summer holidays, and it honestly hasn't been a great experience so far. At the beginning, one of the waiters touched me inappropriately, who was the older son, who was also supposed to handle the bar. Well, nothing was done about it, and now both of the bosses hate me. He is Italian and a massive jerk, and she is a stewardess and honestly not very nice sometimes. Today was really awful because the son was on vacation for the second time this month for a week, and the boss lady had to take over the bar, but she wasn't there on Thursday and Friday because she had to fly, so I had to take over the bar. And that's not a problem in itself, but today was really busy. With the boss lady and her son, glasses are everywhere after 5 minutes because they hardly do anything. I didn't want to get in trouble with the boss, so I worked really hard to keep everything clean. By the way, I often have severe headaches, and today they were particularly bad. Anyways, I cleaned up everything and asked at 10 if I could leave now, but my boss said no. I should still do the dishwasher and asked if I could stay until 10:30, and I said yes because it wasn't really a question from him but more of an order. So I finished everything, but at that point, I felt really sick and very dizzy. Then my 2 coworkers came and brought me 2 fully loaded trays with even more glasses. I then started crying, more because I was really tired and it seemed like the work would never end. My stupid boss then got really upset and said that it was a bad decision to hire me, that we only had a 4-day week anyways, and that we only made my dessert. He went on saying that I had left early recently, but that was a month ago and not recently at all. And besides that, I stayed half an hour longer on Tuesday. He then said that there would be others who would do the work if I couldn't handle it. He then said quite angrily that I should leave now, and then went back to the kitchen. Anyways, on Friday, I get my tips, and when I asked him for it after a lot of hesitation, because I was really scared of him, he said to me, "Oh, but you can ask for that?" I then drove home in tears and had a really bad panic attack. My mom and brother asked what was wrong, and when I answered, my brother immediately went back to the kitchen to look at his phone or something. I think I totally overreacted or something like that. The reason is that this has happened before, and he is generally really mean to me, and I have to say the boss lady isn't much better. I only have 3 more days to work there since Wednesday will be my last day, but I really just don't want to go back. It's just that I sold 2 pairs of earrings to my coworkers, and I wanted to give them to them on Monday, and I would like to say goodbye to a few others. I'm only 17, and I'm only supposed to work until 10 o'clock. I really just want to know if I'm in the wrong here. Is this my fault again, like always? What should I do? Okay, first off, no, you didn't do anything wrong, but also as someone who has worked in situations like this, where you have toxic people running the show who are clearly taking advantage of you, I think it's really important to remember that these people are absolute losers, and you can find a better better job literally tomorrow. Like, just think about the way this guy's treating you. He's working you down to the bone. He is overdoing it and forcing so much on your plate, literally just because he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to give this to his family members. He wants to make the girl who's going to quit in 3 days do all of the work as much as possible. So in my opinion, if that doesn't show that he does not care about you in the slightest, and that he is only going to make your life miserable for these next few days, then seriously, nothing will. It's also really important to know that people like this have no hold over your career. Like, sure, you work there for a little bit, and you probably are going to use them as some kind of like resume filler spot, but you do not have to use them as a reference or anything like that. So with that in mind, and honestly, you can do whatever you want to do, you are under no obligation to stick around and do exactly as they say. You really could quit and not come back for your last few days if you really wanted to. Like, what are they going to do about it? Like, seriously, think about that for a second. They're making your life miserable, and I guarantee you can find a better job than what these idiots are giving you, because these jobs are literally a dime a dozen. And in my opinion, I just don't think you should put yourself through that ever again. An entitled Karen falsely claims that we tried to poison her at our restaurant, and even goes as far as lying that she's not only having a heart attack, but also going to call the police unless she gets what she wants. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened back on Christmas Eve of 2021. I was only in that day to do final preparations for the big day, to finalize and double check all the pre-orders, and to start write the running orders. Basically, it was going to be a very busy day. I pop out from the office to the floor to grab myself a final coffee, as I expect to finish my admin in the next hour. And that's right when I see the chef standing at a table. So at this point, I know this is either really good or really bad. But then the chef walks off with their plates, so that's when I'm thinking, okay, this is really bad. I get the rundown from the chef, and the couple, who is a man maybe in his 40s and his mother who's maybe in their 70s, accused her of trying to poison them because their sausage was cut in half. So I head over to the table. They give me the same story. Your chef cut the sausage open and tried to check if it was cooked, so that clearly means that she was trying to poison us. Okay, for starters, that's actually just how the dish is presented, and the sausage is sliced horizontally and then propped up on itself. And secondly, if the chef had cut it open to check if it was cooked, then they would have seen it was before they served it to you. So if anything, you are more safe this way. And also, this is literally why we have probes. They then told me that they wanted red wine gravy, and I said to them, well, as you can see on our menu, we don't sell red wine gravy. These people then said, then why did your chef say that she was making some in the kitchen? And the reasoning for that was because our Christmas Day menu tomorrow has red wine gravy on it. So they said to me, okay, so give us some of that. But I said no, because that's literally being pre-ordered, and it has been for months. They then go for the entitled statement of, oh, well, I don't see why we can't have it, which doesn't make sense because someone else has already ordered and paid for it. So yeah, I'm gonna give it to them instead of you. They then start telling me about how distressing this is for his mother, who has a heart condition, and that now she's having a heart attack. I said to them, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Please let me call you an ambulance. Well, when I said that, they said to me, no, that's not necessary. So I think to myself, oh, okay, that's real convenient. Anyways, I then tell them that I'm not going to charge them for anything, and that's because this is part of our guest satisfaction guarantee. Well, they refused and say that they will pay full price, and I suspected that they wanted to do this so that they could say that they paid for food that was stolen away from them. But I simply refused. They then said to me, well, we're just gonna leave the money on the table. But I respond by saying, okay, well, I've already told you that I have wiped your bill, so that is already dealt with. Therefore, any money left I will definitely view as gratuity. They then shoot their head over to me and say, we are not tipping you. They then started recording me and asking me to explain myself, but I really don't think they expected me to respond in the way that I did. I said to the camera, hi there, I'm the restaurant manager, and it's currently the 24th of December 2021, and here's the situation as follows. But before I could even go any further, my favorite part about all of this is that he tells me he's going to call the police. He then dials a number on his phone, and I genuinely do not know how this happened, but then one of my waitresses pops her head around the corner from the host stand and says, I'm sorry, but it looks like you've called our restaurant phone. And at that point, I had to turn my head away to stop from laughing. They then came back with a typical, you've just ruined Christmas for us. And I just thought to myself, yeah, well, you haven't exactly made mine any better. I've still never seen that video pop up anywhere, which really makes me sad, but this is honestly one of the most unbelievable experiences I've ever had at this restaurant. Yeah, those people were very clearly trying to scam you and your restaurant out of money, or at least trying to have some kind of like smear campaign against you and everybody else there. Like seriously, they not only lied about food poisoning and also having a heart attack, but also said, I'm gonna call the police. Like all these weird veiled threats just to try and get what they want. So good for you for standing standing your ground and not taking this for another second, because these people were clearly just trying to scam you. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for scolding my wife's nephew in public after he consistently and constantly kept misbehaving just to try and make me, my wife, or everybody else frustrated? Because right now, I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I need to start off by saying that my wife and I disagree on this. She said that what I did was pretty messed up, so I'll try to explain as neutrally as I can. We are on vacation taking our kids to visit her nephews. The relevant parts are that there are 5 kids ranging in ages from 9 to 16 years old. The 12-year-old, who is my wife's nephew, is the one that I supposedly snapped at. I rented a large home so everyone could stay together, and I had tried to redirect his negative behavior until it kept getting worse and worse. For example, on the first day, he opened the car door while I was driving over 55 miles an hour, but I laughed at it, joked that that shouldn't happen, and then child locked the doors. On the second day, it was his constant complaining that we weren't all doing the activities that he wanted to do, specifically that he wanted to play pickleball. I tried to explain that as an adult and without any anger, that we flew thousands of miles and planned this trip specifically to a national park to see this area. We have a separate part of our vacation for games and hanging out just like that. Well, he still pouted and complained. So I had all of us do an extra 1-mile hike for the day. And as a side note, I think I might be the jerk for doing that, but everyone, including him, actually enjoyed that hike the most. But maybe it was still wrong of me. On the third day, we were all cleaning the house to leave, and I heard him ask my 9-year-old son if he wanted to go wait in the car. My son then told him, "Why, so you don't have to clean? That's messed up." Now, I did not say anything, and I just looked at the two of them. A little bit later, my wife asked him to help the other kids clean up, and he just flat out ignored her and stayed on his iPad. Later that day, we all went to a lake and he was skipping stones, and eventually he ended up skipping them near people. My wife told him to stop and that he needed to either stand on the other side of them or throw them in a different direction. But he argued with her that he didn't need to because he said that he had good aim. But I interjected and I told him that your aunt asked you to, and that should be good enough. Nobody wants rocks thrown near them. He started throwing them in a different direction for about 10 minutes, but then he threw them right near the other people again. So I stopped him and I told him off in a loud voice. I basically said to him, "Your aunt told you not to do something and you did it anyways. Why are you doing that? Do you think it's funny? Do you like me yelling at you in front of other people? Would you like me to force you to go up to that couple and apologize? Do you think people want random rocks thrown near them? Get it together right now." Well, my wife thinks that I'm in the wrong because in her opinion, it's not my place to discipline her cousin's kid. But in my opinion, I'm aggravated because I informed this kid's mom of all these events after they happened, and she did nothing to prevent the escalation. I think this might be a cultural issue as well, as to me, it seems quite normal for any family member to discipline a child. So am I the jerk for correcting my nephew in the way that I did? Because right now, I'm seriously not sure what to do. No, you are not the jerk. This kid was being obnoxious the entire time this trip was happening, and he was literally testing the boundaries of what he could and couldn't do the entire time. And that, in my opinion, absolutely needs to be corrected. He cannot get away with acting like such a delinquent the entire time and expect to just get away with it. Because let's say he did skip those rocks at those people and it hit one of them in the eye or something like that. I guarantee you that the second that happened, that kid's mom is gonna be like, "Well, why weren't you watching him? Why did you let him do that?" And try to pin the blame on you for not being present for her kid's actions. Like, this really would have turned on you immediately, and I don't blame you for stepping in and being like, "Wait a second, we are not doing this." And if anything, it was more about just like self-preservation as opposed to policing what that kid can and cannot do. Because in my opinion, when you are responsible for the care of a child, you are also responsible for the discipline of that child. And if that kid really is going to act up in that way and the mom's not going to do anything about it, then in my opinion, you are fully within your right to put him in his place. An entitled old jerk almost runs me over with his car, but then tries to flip it all on me and basically try to blame me for getting behind his car, despite the fact that he definitely was not looking where he was going. Here's what happened. So every day I take a walk with my dog around the neighborhood to get him outside and get some exercise for myself as well. Sometimes I'll go in the morning on weekends or in the evening during the week when it's a bit cooler outside. Well, this morning I went on my walk and I typically take the same route, so I pass by the same houses. Most are owned by people who are a bit older, and there are some that are a bit younger, but after living in the neighborhood for 5 years, years. I'm probably half the age of the average. Right at the start, just down the street from my house, a truck pulls into his driveway and I don't really think anything of it. They also pass by me, so they would have seen me on the sidewalk. I had my dog and my friend's dog that I'm dog sitting as well. Usually, if I see someone get in their car in a driveway, I ensure that they see me, or I wait till they back out if they didn't look around before getting in. In this case, I assumed that they were arriving and not going to be backing out again. And sure, it was dumb of me to assume, but it seems pretty obvious to me. I continue walking, and as I'm right behind the truck, they throw it into reverse and I yell to let them know that I'm there. Well, they immediately start yelling at me. They're getting incredibly aggressive. I quickly see they are two older gentlemen with gray beards and looked like they were maybe in their mid-60s or so. I let them know to check their surroundings and look behind them before backing up. They then start swearing and berating me, saying to me that I knew what was happening. You knew. And I'm just like, no, I don't know where you're going at all times. They did apologize after some exchange back and forth, and at this point, I was pretty upset. The apology was multiple of them saying, "We were wrong, you a-hole," with a pretty big emphasis on them saying a-hole. They were driving slowly behind me on the wrong side of the road as I'm trying to walk away. The driver put his truck in park at one point and opened the door and threatened to fight me right then and there. At that point, I wanted no part of the situation. I told him to get back in his vehicle and not approach me ever again. I had two dogs, and likely it wouldn't have ended well for him, but I'm not the biggest guy out there, and it would have been two guys coming at me at once. But eventually, they turned around and left. I was probably in the wrong for yelling and swearing at them in response to their aggressiveness, and I was not nice in any way after they started yelling at me. But I mean, come on, my dog is everything, not even considering my friend's dog and how much he adores me. I was so pissed off. I have backed out of my driveway a couple of times with people close by that I didn't notice, and I would always immediately apologize. It was crazy how quickly they tried to blame me and started getting super aggressive. And you know what? People make mistakes. That's life. But you really just need to own up to it. Luckily, no one got hurt and they stopped when I yelled that I was behind them. But I'm honestly so sick of these entitled neighbors, and I really hope I never deal with them ever again. Yeah, those guys were completely in the wrong. For starters, there is no good excuse for them not looking where they're going. Like, you're on a public sidewalk. They're in a motor vehicle and they have every responsibility to look out for you. And you know what? It almost seems like they pushed it in reverse the second you got there, almost on purpose. Almost as if they try to do it like vindictively to try and like make a point. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds like they're the kind of people who definitely would try that if given the chance. So you know what? I don't blame you for getting aggressive and swearing at these idiots, because that's exactly what they were. They were being really dumb and almost got you and those dogs hurt. And it would be far too late if they actually injured you or those dogs in some kind of way, because that would have been absolutely tragic. Am I the jerk for being a supposed bridezilla and not inviting to invite my half-siblings to my wedding? Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female and I would be getting married in a few months. We are in the process of getting invites ready, but we hit a snag because my parents, mostly my mom, are upset that I don't want to and wasn't planning on inviting my half-siblings. My mom is the parent that we have in common, and their dad passed away while mom was pregnant with my half-sister, and she met my dad 7 months after her first husband died. They dated and quickly moved in and started helping her with my half-siblings, and they wanted to become a family. I was born within the first year of their marriage, and even though I'm less than 2 years younger than my half-sister, we were never even close, and I wasn't close to my half-brothers either. They didn't like that mom remarried. I also understand that for them it was very fast, so they really didn't adjust to all the changes that happened in those 2 years of their lives, which I can also completely understand. They stuck by each other though, and that included my half-sister. They made sure that she knew that she was their dad's kids and not my dad's, and that I was a half-sister. My mom did a lot to discourage the use of half, and I remember I started saying it pretty young because my half-sibling said it, and she would correct me and correct them as well. My half-siblings never expressed their dislike of me to my face, but their disinterest said a lot. My half-sister wouldn't play with me. She and my half-brothers would talk to me a little, but it was always like them with me and not the four of us together. Even when the boys moved out, my half-sister was distant. My mom and dad would have these family fun days out, but they usually ended with my half-sister screaming that my dad was trying to replace her dad and he needed to leave her alone. The boys would also come home to see her and would take her out. Sometimes they did it while mom was at work and refused to listen to dad saying no. Other times she'd go with them after school, and I was never invited or included. We are all adults now and things have not changed. My half-brothers are married married with kids, and I was not invited to their weddings, and I have not even met their kids. My half-sister has 2 kids as well, though she's not married. I saw her oldest once, but didn't get to interact or anything. They talked to Mom, but the relationship is somewhat strained. Mom told them that she was disappointed they were so cold to me, and that they refused to even have a friendship with me. Knowing all this though, my parents want me to invite my half-siblings and their families to my wedding. They know there's no chance any of them would say yes, but Mom said that I should still invite them, and that I should show them that we are still family. My dad then told me that it was a bridezilla thing to only think of what I want and not think of what the family wants as well. So am I the jerk for not planning on inviting my half-siblings to my wedding? What should I do? Honestly, I kind of see this both ways, but I side more with the original poster than I do with the family. For starters, I can say that yeah, you probably should still extend the invitation, but in my opinion, I don't blame you for saying no, I'm not gonna do it. These people have absolutely made your life miserable by keeping you out of their lives. They've intentionally distanced themselves from you, and they've basically made it so that you have no connection to them whatsoever. And in my opinion, they had literally years to figure their lives out and try to change that negative attitude towards you, and that alone would give me more than enough justification to be like, no, you're not showing up to my wedding. And also, more to the point, why should you have to invite these people, especially after how cold and distant they've been towards you? It doesn't sound like you acted like that. If anything, this sounds like a one-sided thing that they started, because at the end of the day, you did not ask to be born under these circumstances, and you definitely did not ask these people to treat you so poorly. So in my opinion, I think you're completely justified to turn them away and not even invite them, because just like it was mentioned, there's a very high likelihood that they literally will not care in the slightest. An entitled old customer decides to park his scooter right in front of our double doors and effectively blocks anyone from getting in and out of our back rooms. And I'm honestly so sick of dealing with customers who act this way. Here's what happened. So I work at a popular retail corporation, and I pick up orders for people that ordered online. I have a time limit for these carts, but a lot of times people, usually the older generations, assume that I should move for them. But you know what? They wouldn't have to worry about employees as they're shopping around the store if they didn't take up the entire aisle and walkway. Anyways, in the book section of the store past the aisle is the back wall of the store and the one of 2 sets of doors to the back room. It is a frequently used door by all employees except for front of store people. When employees have large, wide, heavy, long carts or carts in general, this is the door that is the most used. It's easier to pass through the book aisle than to try and make a sharp turn and try to squeeze through a different aisle. And in fact, the book aisle is wider for this exact reason. Anyways, this old entitled jerk on an electric scooter decides that he should park his scooter right in the aisle and just sit and talk on speakerphone for over 30 minutes. My friend, the electronics employee, tried to gently herd the man out of the aisle by asking if he needed any kind of help, but was instead met with a glare and then followed by the lead stare. Several people were stuck pushing through the small aisles with huge carts and unwieldy items, and customers were also struggling to get by this man. He wasn't even talking about shopping or what they needed from the store, but instead he was just having a casual conversation. So I honestly can't understand why he decided to park his cart right in front of the giant swinging doors that people are constantly going in and out of. There was also a perfectly large sort of empty walkway where he could have stopped his scooter and minimized the amount of space and items that he was blocking. But I'm honestly so sick of customers that act like this because they are some of the worst people to deal with in the world. Yeah, that sounds incredibly frustrating, and it sounds like a situation where okay buddy, I think you need to read the room. I'm pretty sure all the foot traffic around these double doors should have been enough evidence for this guy to be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't park my electric scooter right here. You seriously have to lack a significant amount of self-awareness to not catch on that, hey, maybe I'm in the way. Maybe I'm the problem in this situation. So truly, I know exactly where the original poster is coming from, because entitled and selfish customers who act this way truly are absolutely the worst. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that she literally causes all of her own problems and then has the audacity to try and complain about it when she knows that she's the one that did it? Because right now she's saying that I lack empathy and that I'm abandoning her. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I have a close friend who we will call Jane, who is constantly complaining to me about the same few things that are completely changeable. She'll beg for my advice, I will give it to her, and then she'll do the exact same things again and continue to complain about them. It got to the point where it honestly seemed like Jane was doing these things to have a reason to complain. So I eventually stopped giving her advice, but would still just let her vent. Recently, Jane switched jobs after years of complaining about her old one and how she felt underpaid and underappreciated, which I do agree that she was. So I helped her get a new job at my old place of employment with a significantly better salary. My old boss had left, but I was still in touch with one of my old coworkers, who we will call Sarah, who told me to let Jane know that the new boss will sometimes call employees after hours, but they are in no way legally obligated to answer and would be penalized for not taking a call. Sarah said that neither she nor any of the other coworkers have ever answered a single call, and to tell Jane to do the same so that he doesn't keep bothering her. I explained this to Jane before she got the job and asked if she was sure that she wanted to take it, knowing that the boss might try to call her after clocking out, but that she in no way was responsible for picking up. She said she understood and still wanted the job. So I set up an interview for her and she ended up getting the job. Well, a month in, Jane started complaining to me that the boss keeps calling her, requesting things during off-work hours. But I told her that both Sarah and I had warned her not to pick up so that she wouldn't keep being bothered by him, and asked why she picked up anyways. She scoffed and said, "Because I'm a good employee, so why wouldn't I pick up?" She then continued to complain about how annoying it was to work at a place where people condone that, and how she should have just stayed at her old job. And at this point, this is where I might be the jerk. I got very upset at that comment because I worked so hard to secure an interview for her. So I said to her, actually, the only person condoning that is you. You knew before taking this job that the boss might try that, and you were warned to just ignore it but chose not to. And now you're complaining about something you don't actually have to do? You always act helpless, and like all these situations just unfairly happen to you, but you're actually causing more of your misery yourself, and I just can't help you anymore. I ended up going home while Jane texted me saying she couldn't believe my lack of empathy and abandonment when I knew that she had a rough life. I told her that she knew I also had a very hard life, but I am now an adult who takes responsibility for my problems, and that she should do the same. One of our other friends told me that Jane was really hurt by what I said, and that I was really harsh and I should have gone easier on her. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all, because it sounds like Jane literally is the master of her own problems. Like seriously, let's look at exactly what happened in this story. She was well informed to the fact that her boss might try to call her after hours, but now she's trying to play dumb and be like, wow, I can't believe this is happening, almost as if she didn't know about this ahead of time. But it's like, yes, you absolutely did know about this. She was literally informed by the original poster, who was told by Sarah. So it's honestly complete nonsense that she's not only welcoming this problem in her life, but then complaining about it as if nobody told her. So no, you're definitely not the jerk for putting this lady in her place, because the way she's acting, in my opinion, is super annoying. My entitled Karen aunt desperately tries to offend me by saying awful things to me about my life, but instead of reacting in the way she wanted me to react, I decided to give her the cold shoulder and say nothing, resulting in my aunt going into a fit of rage in a way that I've honestly never seen before in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so my aunt is the stereotypical American Karen. At the last family dinner, I showed up with my baby, and my aunt pointed out that I'll be sitting in a random corner chair next to the garage door and the garbage can, but the baby can stay in the living room. But I decide to show no reaction and just say, okay. After I make sure my baby is all good in the living room and that he's being watched, I grab a plate and I take my seat. My aunt then asks me if I know why I'm sitting there and how I'm going to handle the holiday season sitting there. But I just shrug and say, well, I guess I'll just suffer in silence. And I tell her that it's her house, so she gets to decide what kind of hostess she wants to be. And then I just start talking to my uncle. Well, my aunt gets upset and starts yelling at me. She said to me, "You had a baby out of wedlock and you refused to get married. That is an absolutely disgusting way to live. You and your boy toy have been shacking up and doing all kinds of substances for over a decade. And now you've brought a baby into the world. You should be ashamed of yourself. If I was you, I'd be too embarrassed to keep living this way, especially since he's never here. I would be extremely disgusted with myself if I knew someone thought of me the way I think of you right now. I am beyond shocked when I see photos that you post that you're actually going out with a baby and no wedding ring. Just absolutely shocked." She then went on to say how back in her day, it was extremely shameful to have a baby out of wedlock, and that she prays the country gets back on track and morals go back to what they were. Well, the entire time, I'm just calmly eating, and after her yelling, I explained that I can get up from the seat whenever I want. Now, my husband and I married per our culture, which is the same one that she married into, by the way, and when we go to his village, we are seen as husband and wife, and just because we didn't get an American license and get married in a church, that doesn't make make it null and void. Now, as for the substances that she's referring to, we smoked the herb back in our 20s. We're currently in our mid-30s, so we are very far away from being any kind of addict. And the reason why he doesn't go to a lot of family dinners is because he works a lot of weekends and later shifts. But in all honesty, it's because he really dislikes that a lot of my entitled relatives continuously ask the same offensive questions every time they see him. And they're also always so shocked when they find someone so dark is more educated than them and speaks multiple languages. So he chooses to stay home for most family events. After the exchange, I went to go sit with my baby and socialize with my cousins. And the rest of the night, several of my old entitled relatives kept approaching me and telling me how I disrespected my aunt and why I should apologize and that I was acting very offensive. Well, the apology they demanded never happened, and I told them that if she is that offended, I can leave her house and she can let me know when I'm allowed back in. Now granted, she is allowed her opinions, and she's had almost 8 months since the baby was born to get a handle on her emotions. But if my presence is that unwanted, then I can leave, because I'm not apologizing for living life outside of what she deems as acceptable. Wow, this is a fantastic example of someone getting offended over literally nothing. For starters, she is absolutely a massive jerk. Your aunt was out of line for talking the way that she was towards you, and the things that she was saying were just so disgusting. But also, she literally intentionally ostracized you from the family. Like seriously, what is wrong with this lady? How can she even begin to say, oh yeah, we're family, while also in the same sentence saying all these horrible things? But I also love the fact that she tried so desperately to get under your skin, but was completely unsuccessful. And in fact, because you said nothing, and you just sat there and said, okay, whatever, she somehow got more angry and decided to go on this weird tirade. And for your relatives to be like, wow, what you did was really offensive, that shows to me how delusional these people really are, and how they seriously have bought into what your aunt is saying about you and your husband. So honestly, I hope you never have to deal with your aunt ever again, and I really hope you reconsider going to her house in the first place, because the way she treated you was completely unacceptable, and you do not deserve that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my sister's baby in the middle of the night simply because it's not my child and I did not choose to have this kid in my life? Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old female and I'm also a college student who lives with my family still. Last year, my family moved into a slightly smaller house, and because my sister and I were gone all the time anyways, with me at college and her with her work and staying at her boyfriend's house, we agreed that we'd share the biggest bedroom. And it wasn't going to be a long-term thing, especially since we're both getting to the age where it's time to fly the coop. I would have done it by now, but I am in nursing school and I can't juggle a full-time job to support myself simultaneously. Now, it wasn't a big deal, especially since we'd really only have to occasionally be in there together during the summertime. However, in the fall, my sister ended up getting pregnant with her boyfriend. She said her and the boyfriend were going to figure it out, and it honestly is pretty complicated since he still lives with his mom, and my sister and her boyfriend live about an hour apart. His mom wanted her to move in because they have the space for her and the baby, but his mom smokes in the house, so it wasn't a viable option. So they spent months trying to figure it out, but neither of them were willing to compromise and move and get an apartment in one city or the other. That is, until literally a week before she was scheduled to be induced. My sister agreed that she'd be willing to move to his city and get an apartment there together. However, that week came quickly and the baby was born. Well, it's been a month later and she still lives here, and he still lives an hour away and only comes around to see them maybe 3 days a week. And during that time, I'm expected to get out of my own bedroom and crash on the couch, which is so ridiculous to me. But when he's not here, my sister gets so unbelievably angry at me for not getting up at 1 in the morning to feed and change her child. She claims that it's selfish of me not to, since she hardly gets sleep as it is, and it would help her out a lot. I've done it a handful of times, but it exhausts me, and I remember that I am young and childless. I'll help during the day, but I am not losing my sleep, especially when I wasn't the one who decided to have a child while ill-prepared. She's angry at me for it, which I can kind of understand because we are her support system, but I shouldn't have to change more of my life than the baby's father does. And it seems like my generosity is being taken advantage of because neither of them seem to be in a rush to get out in the slightest. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You are not the jerk in the slightest, and honestly, it is very frustrating that they are still living there. Seriously, seriously, are they not gonna like move on and find an apartment or what? You are literally allowing her to stay in your bedroom. And this is all with a baby that, guess what, is not yours. And you said it yourself, you're in the middle of nursing school. You can't just drop what you're doing at 1 in the morning and take care of her baby. Like, how is that fair for you in the slightest? The better solution here is for her to move out and move in with her boyfriend. Then they can both work together for taking care of this kid. Because again, it's not your kid. And the fact that no one else in your family is being like, hey, I'll help out. Let me step up and help out the baby. Like, the fact that none of that is happening is really disturbing, especially since it sounds like your parents are living there. So it makes me question, wait a second, where are these people? Why are they not coming into the bedroom or like taking the baby off your sister's hands just to try and like help out in some kind of way? Because I think you might be right. I think your generosity is being taken advantage of, and that is truly depressing to see. Because if you wanted to, you really could like sharpen up this timeline and be like, okay, it's time for you to like hit the road and get another place to live. And the fact that you're in nursing school and still trying to help out as much as you can, in my opinion, shows how selfish your sister is truly being right now. And I get it, she has a baby, so she's very busy. But where is the boyfriend trying to find like an apartment or something? I understand that the sister can't do it, but he absolutely can do it. And it must be nice for him to not have to be around the kid except for what, 3 days a week? Meanwhile, you're stuck there in his place trying to figure things out. So no, you are not the jerk for putting up some kind of boundary with your sister, because the way she's acting, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. An entitled old jerk demands that he should be the one to free a woman trapped in a bathroom. But instead of actually helping to get the door open, this guy stalls for nearly 40 minutes, preventing anybody else from helping out and getting this broken door opened. And I've honestly never seen anything more cringeworthy and embarrassing in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, this happened a few years ago at a housewarming party, and to this day, it is still one of the most entitled things I've ever witnessed in my life. A friend's mom had just purchased a home and hosted a small gathering to celebrate. Among the guests were the host's younger sister, who was maybe in their 40s, and the host's male coworker, who was maybe in his 60s. The older coworker showed up early, and he was already noticeably drunk by the time other people started arriving. When the sister arrived, this guy was smitten with her, and he immediately started dropping cheesy pickup lines. She was clearly uninterested and uncomfortable, but did her best to be polite and not embarrass or offend him. He was oblivious to the social cues while continuing his creepy act. After about half an hour of tolerating him, she excused herself to use the restroom, and this is where things got really interesting. A few minutes passed and we heard someone knocking and shouting. The bathroom door lock was jammed, and the sister could not get out, which was just the hero opportunity that this entitled weirdo was waiting for. He made a beeline for the door and started forcefully twisting away at the knob, but it wasn't budging. In spite of his ineffective attempts, he wasn't letting anyone else get near the door and try and open it. He just stood there with his hands on the knob while insisting that he would rescue her, and also implying that she would owe him once he did. This went on for over 40 minutes, and he even wanted someone to bring him a chair so he could sit down while fighting with the lock, which thankfully nobody did. Now, as luck would have it, his earlier indulgence caught up with him and he had to go to the bathroom. The other bathroom was upstairs, and he reluctantly stepped away to relieve himself, but not before reassuring the trapped sister that he'd be right back to rescue her, and also insisting that no one else attempt to open the door, as we don't know what we're doing and we would just make things worse. Once this guy was out of the way, my friend and I had the door open in under a minute. It turns out the hinges were a bit loose, allowing the door to sag enough to bind the latch. So by lifting the knob while turning, it opened right up. Well, this guy returned just in time to see the free sister hugging and thanking my friend and I for getting the door open. And when he saw this, he was so pissed off. He said to us, "I told you not to do anything until I got back," as if he was somehow making any progress. My friend's mom, being the good-humored saint that she is, offered to get herself trapped so that he could rescue her. Well, the laughter at his expense was way too much for his fragile ego, so he left very abruptly, and the rest of us had a great time rehashing the entire fiasco. Wow, that guy's a massive weirdo. Like, seriously, why was he acting so incredibly entitled towards getting this lady out of the bathroom? It's bad enough that he didn't notice that she definitely did not like him, but also the fact that he kept her in there for literally 40 minutes, all while trying to like pull on the door and be like, "It's okay, I'll save you." Like, that really is some crazy behavior, and honestly, I hope you never have to deal with this guy ever again. Am I the jerk for not sharing my location with my girlfriend through my phone, all because I feel like it's only going to cause us problems? Because right now she is very upset with me for saying no, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my girlfriend and I are 26 years old, and we've been together for about 4 months now, but we've been talking for over a year and a half. And we did that because we wanted to take things slow Oh, well, we are 4 months into officially being a couple, and it's honestly been great. There's proper communication, we don't argue, and we only have positive discussions to eliminate possible or present problems. And we are also very honest with one another. Yesterday, she told me that she wanted me to enable Find My iPhone and add her as a friend so she could see my location 24/7. Now, I've never had this application enabled or turned it on and even shared it with anybody, and I don't have Snapchat with SnapMap to track location. So the idea of someone having access to my location wasn't something I had even considered or ever experienced before. I told her that I don't know if sharing my 24/7 location with her is something that I'd want to do. She asked me why and if I had something to hide, but I told her of course not, but I just never considered it, and I think that it can somewhat cause paranoia in a sense, because it can lead to cyclically and obsessively checking your partner's location if they, for example, don't reply for an hour. She then got angry with me and told me that exactly for that reason, we should have location shared so that she or I won't worry if the other person is not replying. But I said to her, what if I don't reply for an hour and you check my location, but I'm just at home possibly cleaning or sleeping, just as an example? Would that not cause unnecessary paranoia because you assume that I should be able to reply because I'm at home, but you don't know that I'm sleeping or doing something else? Now, it may have been a bad example, but my point honestly still stands. I also said that I always tell her where I'm going or what I'm doing before I go to said place or do said thing. So that honestly should be enough. She said that I was being crazy and that if I really was honest with her, I would share my location. I told her that the fact that she wants my location out of fear for me not being honest is a bad sign, and that it's offensive that she assumes I would lie to her and not tell her where I am. But she said that I was being offensive towards her for not sharing it with her. I told her I'm not going to share my location because I know that it can lead to a lot of misunderstandings and misconceptions in the future, and that I wasn't going to let her coerce me into sharing it with her, and that if she didn't believe me and needed it to trust me, then maybe we should have a talk to reevaluate our trust. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because it really seems like your girlfriend is going way beyond what's like even appropriate in my opinion. Like seriously, she wants to know your location 24/7, like at all times exactly where you're at. Like that can work for some people, but the way she's wording it and saying it, in my opinion, just seems really weird. Almost as if she just innately doesn't trust you. And the fact that she's like, oh, what do you have to hide? Like that kind of accusatory tone, in my opinion, is not a good sign, and that is like an immediate red flag that I noticed when I was reading through this story. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for setting up some kind of boundary, because clearly this is something that you are definitely not comfortable with. Would I be the jerk if I refused to buy a tacky painting that my sister-in-law made of my family without my permission or request? Because right now she is very offended that I've turned her down, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 52-year-old female, and this situation concerns my husband's brother, who we will call Drew, and his wife of 5 years, who we will call Suzanne. Drew supports Suzanne on his income while she focuses on her dream of being an artist. She makes paintings of people and animals and has a website where she advertises her work for sale. Now, privately, I don't think her art is very good. It's absolutely better than what I could do, but it doesn't look professional, if you know what I mean. My husband feels the same, so we have not opted to purchase any of her art, despite her dropping hints here and there about it. The art on her site is priced in the range of $3,000 to $5,000. I realize that labor and cost of materials must be taken into account, but given the quality, those prices seem outrageous to me. I suspect she's not making regular sales because she's started making portraits of friends, family, or pets as a surprise, and usually said family and friends end up feeling obligated to buy the painting as a courtesy. And unfortunately, my husband and I were the latest victims of this sales tactic. My son recently proposed to his girlfriend, and we took the two of them, his girlfriend's parents, and our daughter out to a fancy dinner to celebrate. Both of my kids posted pictures from dinner on social media, and without telling anybody, Suzanne decided to make a painting of one of these pictures of everyone smiling for the camera. She then revealed the big surprise at a party that she and Drew hosted 2 weeks ago. The painting is a whopping 40 by 58, and I honestly think it's awful and really tacky. I told Suzanne that it was sweet of her to commemorate such a special moment in our family, but I carefully avoided saying anything about liking it. But as I feared, she kept dropping hints throughout the party about how we can buy it as a wedding gift, and she would be happy to give us a big discount off what she would charge someone else. Because seriously, who else would buy it? Well, I politely dodged these hints, and she was clearly disappointed. Over the weekend, Drew reached out to my husband happened to say that Suzanne feels hurt that we never made an offer. He said it's become obvious as the years go by that we've never purchased one of her pieces, even though we have the means to do so, and it would mean a lot to them if we buy the painting. Her original asking price was $2,500, and Drew said he'll reduce it further to $1,900. But here's the thing, it is not about the money, it's the principle of the thing. I feel like I'm being strong-armed into paying for something I never asked for, don't like, and don't have any space for in my house. I asked, and my son and his fiance don't want it. My husband thinks that we should just buy it to keep the peace in the family and avoid some kind of potential rift with Suzanne and Drew. He also says that the way I talk makes me sound like a snob, even though I would never share these opinions with anyone I know but him. So would I be the jerk if I stood my ground and refused to buy this painting? What should I do? Okay, I've got to be completely honest here. Suzanne and Drew sound like absolute nightmare individuals. Seriously, what are they thinking here? They're just gonna make paintings for people and then try to guilt trip them into buying it for thousands of dollars? You did not ask for this tacky gift, and you are definitely not under any obligation to buy it from these people. Like, what is wrong with these people? This is so uncalled for. The fact that she would make this and be like, oh, isn't this so nice? You should totally buy it. And then when you don't fork over the money, she's like, wow, I can't believe they bought it. I'm so offended. But it's like, lady, nobody wanted this. You made this and then just expected people to buy it. That is so stupid and weird. Like, honestly, I can't believe someone would do that to you guys. She must have a really bad business if her only way of making sales is basically by trying to like force her art on people. This whole situation, in my opinion, is absurd. So obviously, no, you are not the jerk. And if anything, Drew and Suzanne are completely out of line for the way they're literally trying to force you to buy this stupid art. Would I be the jerk for not paying back my ex's mom after she bought me first-class tickets to Hawaii for a trip that I was no longer going on? Here's what happened. I'm a 34-year-old male, and my ex broke up with me 3 weeks ago. Prior to this, her mom had bought me and a bunch of other people first-class Delta tickets via some Costco travel package to Hawaii so that she could show her appreciation for us helping her move into their house. Now, I was unavailable when they called me to ask me if they should because I was working. Well, they later told me, and I was grateful for the gift. I've never flown first class, so I agreed to go. I was looking forward to this trip with my girlfriend, her mom, and their 2 family friends. Then my ex broke up with me on July 1st. I was so hurt, and she did it by text message too. We had been together for 10 months. 2 weeks into the breakup, her mom texted me and my ex in the group chat. She said that due to the situation, I had been removed from our Hawaii trip in December, and unfortunately, due to laws and contracts, she was unable to get refunded the over $2,000 that she paid. She then said that I have that amount in credit through Delta, and that she would like a refund as soon as possible. She said that once she received the funds, I will be provided the confirmation number to secure my flight of choice, while also saying that I had a year to use it up. It was crazy timing because I was planning on reaching out to my ex that day, and I ended up reaching out to my ex 2 days later, and I ignored the text from her mom. Well, today we had a conversation at Starbucks. I apologized for things that I felt I did wrong, and things were going seemingly well until we were leaving. My ex thinks that I should make it right and reimburse my mom the $2,000 for the tickets, but I feel it was a gift that I had no control over and not something that I would have normally bought for myself. She says that because they put the ticket in my name, that credit belongs to me, and that I should make it right and just pay for it. So would I be the jerk for not paying for this airplane ticket? What should I do? No, you would not be the jerk by not paying these people back, because they're not trying to do you a favor by getting you this confirmation number and all these credits. They're literally just trying to get their money back. They're trying to get a refund because airlines suck and they don't give refunds. So if my ex broke up with me regardless of whatever trip was going on, there's no way on earth I would ever pay that back, because that, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic, and you do not need that kind of energy in your life in the slightest. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, but also check out Am I the Genius? Everything will be linked down below in the description. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.